Says we are live.
Should I wear my
Are
hat?
we actually live?
My awesome hat. Nerdy hat. Nerdy hat.
Yes.
Are we out there?
Yeah, we're going.
I can't see a thing. I have my glasses on. I can't see a thing. I've spelled my name wrong. How did that happen?
So I'm Paul Yellovich.
Oh, I'm at Irving Dorkin. I'm Evan Dorkin. Yeah. It's weird. I wasn't ready for like an episode. I just thought I can't. I have too much hair. I'm Evan Dorkin. I'm drinking a beer.
So we decided to try this out. This is live. We don't know how well this will work or anything, and it doesn't matter. So
no, it doesn't matter. And if nobody shows up, you can.
What do you mean? We've got people here.
Oh, hello, Satanic Mechanic. I envy. Oh, it's Roger. Hello, Roger. I envy everybody here. Knows how to fix cars. Has interesting friends. Fuck you, Roger. Roger has the most amazing collection of figures, and he's a good guy. And Cordo Maltese is making fun of my hat, so I'll put it back on.
Okay.
I look like the shittiest.
I think you should take off the hat. Not for nothing. Trust me.
No,
We've known each other for 40 years practically. Take off the hat.
I feel good with this hat on. It makes me look 80 years older. I like it. My car broke down up on the highway. Oh, I'm sorry. I asked you for money yesterday. Yeah. Well, that's my drawing hat. My family got me that for my drawing, but I don't draw much anymore. It's a good hat. Wait.
So I guess we're gonna just talk about some movies we've seen, and
yeah, we could just bullshit, and people can just say, "Don't put the hat back on." Put the hat. Actually, this is a lot cuter than me. I look like shit today. I just got out of the shower and I need a haircut. My buying a car thing today worked 90%. You like the? Thank you. But I gotta get a haircut. Look, I can't stand this. Look at this. I am not gonna make a good bold. Like, you look like a natural. Look at this. I'm Roy Thomas in a garage band. Holy shit! I'm getting old. This is scary. You know what this is? I feel like I'm in an episode of Monsters. This is how cheap I look.
It might be. I'm not sure what the fuck's going on at this
point. This is terrible. I hate being reminded I'm 55. I hate it.
Anyway. Well, I just turned 53, so we're both old.
I know, but you're in good shape and shit. You can like.
Oh, wait a second, Evan.
Do stuff. Fuck you, Alan Doctor. Alan Doctor, I have known since 40 years, 42 years.
Jesus Christ!
Out here on Satan Island, Shaolin Island. Alan, I'm not going to put the hat back on. I might take the shirt off though and end our entire podcast forever. I would be very, very sad. Well, yeah, we decided to throw an episode together because we're going out of our fucking minds. We assume some of our listeners are going out of their fucking minds too. I don't know why. It could be the fuckery. Uh-oh. Paul, play for time. I think my cat's done something.
Okay. Am I juggling? You didn't say I had to juggle.
Okay. I'm back.
So I hope everyone's enjoying this.
Well, we're not professionals. We don't have the badge. We don't go to creation. Nobody knows what sophomore year is, Alan. That doesn't help. Since sophomore year. So what does the chat thing do? That's if people want to type. I thought the comments would come on the side.
No. Are you seeing comments on the side?
No, I'm seeing comments right up at front and center.
Right. So what's going on here is that I am seeing everybody's comments, and I have the ability to put up the comments, so this way we can talk about them.
That's perfect. Gico Regio? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm just going to say Cordo Maltese. My cat's name is Nutmeg. She was found in a garbage can by cops in Brooklyn. Unfortunately, she's not black cat because they didn't put 7 bullets in her back. Sad but true. but we adopted her when she was a baby. It's basically it's the kid's cat, but she attacks all of us. She's really sweet. And Paul has 2 cats.
Yes, my 2 cats now are a boy and a girl, brother and sister, Milo and Poe. I forgot my fucking cat's name.
That's bad.
Yeah. But interesting, my last 2 cats were actually found in Evan's backyard and a litter apart. And I had those guys for...
We got Sarah and her brother found I think they caught the mother. We had 4 cats that we ended up finding homes for. It's pretty wild. One of the cats became huge. One that she gave to her dad. You had the good ones, though. You had the good ones. You had they were fun. Yeah. And your earlier cat stole my wallet.
Yes, and once walked across the floor while we were watching a movie.
We were watching Kung Fu movies.
Well, we were always watching Kung Fu movies, yeah. And Evan used to have this ritual where he would take off his shoes and he would put his wallet in a certain... This is true.
It is kind of true. It was comforting and OCD.
Yeah.
And the cat stole my wallet and ran into your room with my wallet as if there was going to be payoff there. As a Jew, I only could walk out with like $3 and a quarter to call my mom.
Yeah, and he also he would do that with bananas. We once had, but this was pre-cell phone time, so no one had cameras to film this. So. And
you found a pinky bowl today.
Yes, I have to clean out my my basement because I have to get a new oil tank for $4,500, which sucks.
That sucks. Oil's not worth it, right? Do you need the oil?
Ace. Yes.
Hey. There's nothing wrong with naming your dog after Ace the Bat Dog because I named Ace from Beast of Burden after Ace the Bat Hound. And Rex is named after Rex the Wonder Dog, who's an earlier DC.
I'll come right back to this. I don't have gas coming into the house, Alan. There is no gas, so I can't convert. But
convert to Judaism. Can people see can people who are checking in see the questions? Or do we have to read them?
No. They could also see them on their page. I think they could scroll up and down and do stuff like that.
I was afraid this is going to be like when you do a convention and you always have somebody comes up and goes, and then you spend 2 minutes saying their question and they leave by the time you answer it. How did we meet? We met through comic books, Paul and I.
Well, the first time I met you, I was with Pete Dimitri, and we were in the Staten Island Mall, and you had really long hair then.
What's
and
you
would come up.
I thought
that's the first time we met. So the thing is, there's a comic book store in Staten Island called Jim Hanley's Universe, and it is the place where we found people we could deal with. And it was our tribe.
It was my Eltingville. That's where it was in Eltingville, and it was our gathering of the tribes. It really was like the SPX, if you know about that. People from all over the island basically congregated there. There were other comic book stores, but they were the ones like you kind of make fun of. I mean, we weren't like cool, but we were a real serious clan of old, young guys, women. A lot of us worked there. I had been fired from the Fantastic Store for doing some stuff and whatever. And but Eltingville, this store was in Eltingville, and that's where the Eltingville Club's name comes from. I always run into people thinking it was Pete's store, which was on the other side of the tracks when JHU moved to the mall.
Okay.
They think it's alternative realm. I see this all the time from people going, I used to go to that store, but I don't remember seeing Evan Dorkin or any of the people he talks about. And I was like, because it's 2 different stores. But yeah, that's how we met. They were I was working at... Wait, didn't you go to the Fantastic Store? Were you ever at the Fantastic Store? I feel like you guys...
I was at the Fantastic Store. I used to go to the Fantastic Store with my Doctor Who scarf on. I was that guy.
So we met there.
I don't remember you.
I feel like I remember seeing you and Pete while I was on the raised platform where the register was. I don't think I was ever there with you. Well, we met through these comic stores, like everybody. Right. I mean, and the two guys who own the current version of Jim Hanley's universe are former Jim Hanley's employees, Ronnie Hill and Nick Purpura.
Right.
And it's still going. And there are people from Jim Hanley's universe in the Fantastic Store. A few of them ended up working in the industry. One guy, who's the actor who's on?
Kevin Sussman.
Kevin Sussman
who played a comic book store owner in Big Bang Theory.
Right.
He worked with Kevin Sussman in a comic book store in the 80s and 90s. It's crazy.
I've mentioned it a lot on my social media. R.I.P. Comic Book Jones. Sacco Jones was a former manager at Jim Hanley's universe. I worked in Manhattan a couple of times. Did you work? You managed the Jersey store when there was a Jersey bowling alley, and several of the people who worked there. One of them owns a comic store upstate New York. Pete Dolan.
Yep.
It's like it really spawned a lot. Jim Miller worked at DC.
Yeah, Jim Higgins.
It was a bizarre big group of people. We were always going to Wool Hops. We were always going to see movies at like midnight. Paul and Jim Hanley would drive to. Would you drive to Philadelphia for cheesesteaks at 2 a.m?
Oh, we would do that all the time. We'd drive into the Manhattan to San Loco or Wool Hop.
It was a ton of fun to be at loose ends with this group of people back then. I miss it in a lot of ways. Yeah. There is a video of a lot of us at the Jim Hanley's in Eltingville, so on YouTube. Ronnie Hill put it up. It was a weekend fundraiser, but we met interesting people who did signings there. Bob Schreck, I think I met for the first time there, and Diana Schutz. I wasn't there for the Neil Gaiman signing, or the Elf signing, when the Peonies didn't show up because their wolves broke down on the highway. I actually told this kid, who was it? Andrew Bader? Andrew Bader, who was a piece of work. We could talk about this store. We could do an episode on store stuff.
We could just talk about why anything else.
Brian Marshall, who
was on our last Videocast. Yeah.
He was a manager at the store. I mean, we all ended up meeting each other and then bringing more people into this group. It was heady days, and it was. We'd have parties at this store. People, if you came at this store at 4 a.m, people would be there, and you could hang out all night. We had a regular customer who came every Thursday at about 4 a.m. to buy graphic novels. He was a sanitation worker. He was dumping garbage outside. He said, "What is this?" We opened up the store and told him about Nexus. He bought Nexus, and he was a regular for years. Crazy stuff. Oh my God! Yeah. Holy crap!
There's a picture of me. From
who else is that? Who's back there? It's hard to tell. Oh, is that the glass for the office? It's hard to tell.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah.
Who the hell is the vampire kid? Yes, we know that, Alan. We already said that. Alan, what drugs are you on? So is that the Eltingville store?
Yes, that is the Eltingville store.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild. Do you have the photo of us at my apartment? Act like idiots?
I might.
You have a bunch. The one where we're all standing there as if we have like a photo shoot. It was terrible. But yeah, that's a long answer. We could, like horror movies, a lot of our diner talk, especially if certain people around, would revolve around the comic stores. Oh my God. There's Rob Beck. There's Mike Murphy on the left. Steve Tyrone in the back. Somebody with a monk.
Isn't that Morrissey? That's Tom Morrissey.
I think that's Tom Morrissey, and I believe that's Steve Getty's sister, Anna Marie?
Not sure.
Or is that a girlfriend of Rob's?
Oh wait, we have a comment. This is Stevie.
Wait, what do you mean? All right, hold on. On the left, the guy who's wearing the really bad Spirits of Halloween Freddy Krueger outfit, that's Mike Murphy. Mike Murphy is now in the Merchant Marine and a deep bigot. Next to him, okay, my eyes are really, really bad because
I don't think it. I really don't think it matters to name every person on the thing.
No, this is fun. Rob Beck.
This is Rob Beck.
Was a guy that I brought. He was my first friend in Staten Island, neighborhood friend. Pete D'Annunzio is based on him, although I'm not. His personality is nothing like Pete's. It's just that was Rob's girlfriend. That's what I thought. I wasn't sure. Steve, the guy who's giving the Doctor Who dead look back there, that's Steve Tyrone, who is also part of my gaming group. Everybody here is part of my gaming group except for Tom Morrissey back there, who was my roommate years later. But look at Steve Tyrone. He looks just so happy. He's like the Grim Reaper there. And that's me with the feathered hair, looking like.
I'll see if I can find some more interesting stuff.
Right.
But actually, I should say that Stevie, who you hear on the podcast, my wife,
the witch,
we met at Jim Hanley's Universe. So,
I met my first serious girlfriend at the Fantastic Store, and we're still friends with a lot of the people that we met from back then. It was a pretty definitely we should actually do some comic book stories, because between the conventions, the traveling, I mean, the story of me, Pete Dolan, and Jim Pernicone drunk in a room for 40 minutes with Mark Hamill, stoned out of his mind. I walk into our hotel room in 1988 because the comic shop guys all went on Hanley's dime to do meetings and stuff and go to the industry retail stuff marketing. And I walk into there's an idiot. What was I wearing a hat? What's with Dexy's Midnight?
When that picture was taken.
Yeah, you're right. That's not my hat. Hey, look, I'm wearing a V for Vendetta. Isn't it? Holy crap. Holy crap. Yeah, I had so much to give the middle finger to back then. Life was tough, sitting in a comic store all my life. But I walk in and there's Mark Hamill, like, offering lollipops to Pete Dolan and Jim Pernicone, who's running around in his underwear. It was very bizarre. I'm really glad things worked out for Mark Hamill, that he doesn't have to do that anymore. Yeah. But anyway, should we talk about horror movies, folks? Anybody have any?
Watched them. Yeah.
Yeah. I've actually never seen Newsies. Have you?
I do not believe I have.
Because I feel like, don't take this the wrong way, I feel like Stevie may have tried to sit through it.
Well, speaking of Stevie, we'll do one more picture before we start talking to movies. And here's Stevie back in the day at a Halloween party at your house.
Oh, I love that outfit. But yeah, this house was amazing. Sarah and her brother Tim, who's in Texas now, we stumbled into a guy who didn't know what he was doing, trying to renovate a 6-bedroom Victorian, 3-story Victorian house with huge backyard, a ballroom, a huge kitchen, and it was a white elephant because it was falling apart and he didn't know what to do with it. So we ended up living there for a few years, and it was the best house for parties.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. It was really absolutely amazing.
It's not good for Philip Bond from Deadline, because he and Glenn Dillon were in town with their partners, and they came all the way on the ferry only to have a guy in a nun costume knock Phil Bond off the back porch when opening up the door, and Phil Bond had to go to a Staten Island hospital for I think he broke his elbow or his shoulder.
I thought he broke his shoulder.
In fact, that is the night, because that's the smoke machine.
Yep, we had a smoke machine.
And it was funny because Glenn's they were not married at the time, but Glenn Dillon, who now has an amazing career, I think he's designing Batman stuff. He was designing Star Wars. Glenn is Steve Dillon, late Steve Dillon's brother, amazingly talented guy, really sweet guy. He's started doing stuff for ILM for a few years, and now he's on another project. But his wife is, I'm blanking on her name, Siobhan, Siobhan, who is now a designer, but is still in good standing as a member of Bananarama. So it was just a weird night, and everybody was drunk by the time they showed up, and then they hauled them off the porch. No limeys. It was terrible. Oh my God. There's nothing more embarrassing than having a guest at your party assaulted by a guy in a nun costume. That was
well, actually, there's one question before we get to movies, if you want to go for this.
Sure. How many long boxes of comics do you guys keep around currently? I don't think you have any.
None. I sold all my comics, and I'm totally electronic when it comes to 99% of my books and comic books these days.
I'm if you can see back there, I'm mostly a collection person. I managed to parlay being in the industry, working for enough publishers, having enough friends in the industry, and working at comic stores for a lot of years that still gave me a discount afterwards. And I had such an amazing trade situation with Sacco that I could bring in my books and things that people sent me that I didn't want and trade them. So if you see the EC libraries back there, the Tales from the Crypt that I'm pointing to, it's the first one that I got in $2 trade, $2 cash, working for Jim Hanley at the Fantastic Store. I worked for months until I could haul that home a mile and a half to my house. It was like, it was just like bringing a new car home or a baby. It was amazing. So I really like collections. I only have maybe 2 long boxes of comics by other people. I got rid of a lot of my stuff. Sarah has a long box of like Lois Lane and stuff like that. And our kid has maybe 3 long boxes of comics all through the house. But we have, God, my hair's doing some weird shit in the humidity. We have hundreds, if not.
You keep on talking about hair, and it bothers me.
I'm sorry.
I am sensitive.
It's making me itch. It's driving me fucking out of my mind. But mostly collections. Almost everything I got rid of, I've got collections of. The Kirby stuff that's collected. Basically, I lucked out, and there was a guy at DC who I was friendly with. He worked it out that I got on the comps list for every DC archive, and all the that included the Ditko archives, the Kirby archives, and a bunch of odds and ends. And I think he did that to kind of DC and to help me out. And I drew him a really nice milk and cheese strip. But I have all the Spirit archives. I got the Thunder Agents. But I did start getting rid of a lot of stuff because too much. Books do furnish a room, but they also pile up a fucking room. Yeah. We were running out of room. When we downsized from that old house from 6 bedrooms to 3, which we need private office from, I still am living with boxes back there. It sucks. So not too many, not lots of comics, and I also have some on a reader that I have to find. That Paul gave me an old reader of his, and I can't find the fucking adapter, and that's where that Baba book is. I'm dying.
Oh, so but you didn't ask me. I probably could figure that out. Right?
Really? Well,
Okay.
Well, but yeah. I like reading stuff on a reader. I really do, but I'm a book fiend. Paul had a monstrous book collection, and between Paul, Brian, and some of our other friends, really turned me on to a ton of books that I came to later than them. I had read some Lovecraft and weird fiction, but they really were deeper in it. Westlake, all science fiction, horror, mystery, true crime. I did go through a true crime freak out for a long time, Loom Panics and all that. But I listened to what Paul and Brian would talk about and other people about what they were reading. Big influence on what I read and collect. Like I can't stop buying Spirit, Spider. Shadows. What the Spider is what I thought the Shadow would be.
Right.
We've talked.
If you've never read a Spider pulp, they're off the wall, crazy, great rides. I mean, they're not all good. There's 100 and whatever of them on there.
It's like a good kick flick or a Japanese horror movie or something. There's always one thing in there that you just go, that was written on drunk. There's a few that are so fucking insane. I would love to see a Hong Kong version of it, or Vietnamese, Thais, where cars can go through humans, and they're wild. They're totally fever dreams. They're exhausting.
Yeah.
And the shadow just kind of like watches you do shit and says, "Oh,
Right.
I'm gonna get the later ones." The radio show killed it.
Yeah.
The radio show is just him going, and a guy goes, "You'll never get me, Shadow." And Shadow goes, "Oh well, you better not commit a crime in the next 10 minutes of this radio show." And then he fucking lets him kill 80 people before he does anything. A fucking Shadow. The spider blows people away left and right. And it's not just, oh boy, yeah. I love that jacket. That's whose house is that? Oh, Fletcher's?
That's Doyle's. That's Backyard in Doyle's house.
That's what it looks like. That's Jim Doyle's. Was that an everybody's birthday in July party?
No, probably volleyball and hanging out or something.
Oh, dude, I love playing volleyball. Did we play a violent game? And that's my Let's Go Bowling jacket. And I think that's a borrowed pair of glasses, which is when I realized I needed glasses. I would borrow Pat's glasses.
Well, remember when we used to play racquetball? I mean, it was horrible.
I miss it. I mean, we played the most violent games of racquetball. It really was.
It wasn't a full game unless
hit the glass.
You hit the ground. If you hit the ground,
I love that.
Then we knew it was a good game.
We go for every shot, even if we love to jump. We were in what? We're in our 30s, late 30s, 40s, late 30s, I think. We always, and I loved it because we had a routine. We'd play and then eat ibuprofen. Paul had his little. You'd have your thing of ibuprofen, and you go ibuprofen. Yeah, we just start taking pills because we constantly beat up. Yeah, Westlake. I was introduced to Westlake and Stark and all that stuff through the group. And
one day, Brian Marshall called me up and said, "I'm reading a book you have to read. It's called The Score." And he told me about it, which is about we always talk about it. It's an anti-hero criminal who they're just great books.
Really well plotted. I love the way that he'll go back and forth, ending a chapter, and then going back in time to show you what some other character. He'll back up a little bit, and you're never quite sure who's coming through the window in that last chapter, because he plays with expectation. His characters are also super smart.
He's a terrific writer. Brilliant.
He doesn't just write, "Oh, I dropped my keys, the killer's going to get me" type stuff, or "I'm out of bullets." He just writes really, and he's written a lot of screenplays. Well, he's dead now, right?
Yeah.
Cool. No, that's Paul. I was calling him the guy from Hawkwood back there, but Paul had massive hair. Him and his friend both had. Actually, you and Mulcair too, right? He had a lot of hair, right?
Oh yeah. I have horrible pictures of that too. Maybe I should.
It was like what's the band? Shit. It was like the Mission UK if they were cosplaying as Doctor Who. You are my TARDIS of strength. Yeah. So if anybody has, I'm enjoying this, but if anybody has horror movie questions, we can start working on the tear them apart end of things, or any kind of questions, because we're here really just to hang out and keep everybody company.
Right.
We are thinking of a 13th episode once we're able to do regular planned episodes. And Paul, that would be our 13th.
Yeah, it'll be episode 13. Hopefully it'll coincide with Halloween, and are we doing what we said we were going to do? Is that what we're going to do?
Yeah, fuck it.
Yeah. Should we say what we're going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to talk about all the Friday the 13th films. I'm
going to revisit as many of them as I can, too. I guess you should start queuing them up.
But here's the thing.
Learn the dance.
But when we did John Carpenter, that was 9 hours, Wow.
Yeah, but that was good stuff. There's not a lot you could say about a lot of the Friday the 13th films unless you worked on them. Like Kane Hodder's teeth fell out. But otherwise, no. The vomit one. She saw you've seen Shin Godzilla, right, Paul?
Kind of, yes. Yes, I did.
Wait. You kind of saw a movie?
I did watch it, but I mean, if you ask me anything about it, it irritated.
That doesn't. I hear he throws up and then lights it on fire. And Alice saw this at the video place in the back of the bookstore, Kinokuniya, at Edgewater at Mitzvah, and she was stuck to it, fascinated by it. Like, we're given, it's free real estate. She would just, and I go, what is she looking at? And it's Godzilla vomiting all over Tokyo. And I'm like, that's my kid. But we haven't seen it yet. The only horror movie I know that she's really into K-pop and really into idols, and so they've been watching TV. Her and Sarah have been watching TV shows and movies that have had idols in them. So a lot of them are crazy and have horror elements in them. But I know she really liked Train to Busan, which I was surprised. It's an intense movie. Oh, I liked it a lot. They really liked it. I was pissed though because I wanted to watch it with them. And I was like hyping it up, and then one day, oh yeah, we watched Train to Busan. Nothing. So I think the second one is making the rounds on streaming somewhere. But yeah, I haven't seen Shin Godzilla either. I'm a disaster when it comes to Phantom. If you've listened to the podcast, you've heard me talk about my blind spots, and I'm trying to fill them in. I haven't seen. I didn't see Matango until just recently. I mean, there's Godzilla films I haven't seen. I don't think I've seen any of the last four Godzilla films.
I have not seen either of those.
I have not heard of The Bad Batch. A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, I was almost about to watch, but I just thought, it sounded like it might put me in a bad mood for going to sleep, which might not be true, but it's on my list. It's a great title. I don't know much about it, but it looked stressful. I might be wrong about that.
Yeah.
Even that I'm not crazy about. Like I watched Rec 1 and 2, and I'm sitting there going, I didn't love them, but I was trying to go to sleep, and I was getting all worked up because it's very claustrophobic, and it's really funny because I watched a couple of Italian films, and that's Spanish, but it's interesting to see the way European horror movies have differences based on architecture. I mean, so does it's interesting to see how a Japanese horror movie. I watched a whole bunch of Japanese horror movies recently, and a whole bunch of Italian. Europe has these long corridors that these poor bastards have to run down. And in one of the Italian movies I just watched, and can you imagine that you're in a horror situation and it's bad enough if you're in an American house, but you can basically get your ass out of there in like 8 seconds most of the time, and they have these corridors that seem to go on forever, like a bowling alley, and there's 8 doors that some little ski bots vampire kid or zombie kid. What? Fuck that, right? I just find children and throw them down the hall. There's one. Holy shit. Yeah, I have to watch. I have a long list of stuff I want to see, stuff I have, it's ridiculous.
Well, do you want to start, or would you like me to start?
Yeah, you start, because I'll start talking about Boxcar Willie and Zamfir and the Parachutes or some shit like that.
Okay, so I saw the Fantasist the other day. It is a horror film by the director of The Wicker Man, the original Wicker Man, which is, I mean, could you say that that's maybe the best horror film ever made? I would argue that it belongs in the discussion.
It's in my top 25. Yeah. It's fantastic.
And the thing is, it's
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, I don't understand the movie's very weird and odd.
I mean, so is The Wicker Man, but it's
right.
Literally has a framework. I mean,
right. It's essentially it also has Timothy Bottoms in it, though. Just to
what the fuck is Timothy Bottoms showing up in everything lately?
It's the Mandela effect. He's in everything. He's actually was in everything.
Was he in prison with Mandela?
No.
But
don't even joke about that, Wicker Man. Wicker Man's a piece of shit. I mean, it's funny.
I haven't seen The Wicker Man with him, and I really want to see it because I saw the bicycle scene where he steals a bicycle and screams at a guy, and I saw the bees yelling, and I'm like, I'm there for any bees now that we saw the bees. The bees
Yeah,
is
the
just
Beast is great.
But Timothy Bottoms has been in like 3 movies we've seen.
Yeah,
And,
he's not very good in this. No one is very good in this. It's very I don't know. It's a thriller. It's on Tubi and I think Prime. And if you're interested in looking, the thing is, it's not impossible to see the man who made The Wicker Man made this film. There's a couple of shots and there's a couple of things that just work. The pacing is nice, but the story is kind of weird and not very good, and it has a kind of, problematic conclusion.
Yeah,
but
just doesn't work. Have you ever seen a movie that I believe is called Nothing But the Night?
Nothing But the Night. Let me see
if you can click that up. I keep forgetting to bring this up in an episode, but because The Wicker Man comes up a lot because everybody talks about The Wicker Man. It's terrific, and it seems to be going through another resurgence with folk horror and stuff, But if that's the name of the film, and Christopher Lee and I think Peter Cushing are in it.
Yes, that's what I just brought up.
Okay, yeah, it hasn't come up yet. Okay, yes. I suggest people should see this if they like The Wicker Man. It's not a great film, but the interesting thing is it sounds like Christopher Lee making his own Wicker Man to a degree.
Okay,
that's production company.
Oh,
the production company he put together with his partners, and it's about a mystery on an island that involves children and the occult, and police presence is sent to this strange island. It is obviously no Wicker Man. It's not great, but it's interesting to watch a guy who was in Wicker Man as his first film from his new production company do Wicker Man-esque story, and it has one element at the end that's pretty like, well, I'll remember that, but it's a weird I think he made 2 movies before Christopher Lee's production company dissolved, but I had never heard of it before. I fell upon it on YouTube, and I was like, this is like years away from. This is very close and contemporary to Wicker Man, and it's an interesting asterisk. But what is The Fantasist actually about?
Well, you have a young Irish girl moving to Dublin, I believe, and she's dealing with the temptations that might be there for her as a young woman in a big town. There is a killer, and there's a lot of red herrings on who that killer is. There's a lot of characters that they push too hard as being the killer, so it's obvious they're not. Yeah. Spoilers. And
so it's giallo type thriller in that there's horror elements to it, or is it more of a slasher?
No, it's more of just like a thrilling mystery. Who's calling? The killer calls people on the phone. The beginning of the movie introduces this as part of the story. So at a certain point, our heroine is getting phone calls, and so she's trying to figure out who it is. It's just I wish I could explain it better. It just there's some bad Irish accents. There's
really.
Yeah.
Badly done by non-Irish actors?
Yes.
Like why? What, you couldn't get somebody to come over? I mean,
it's really weird. I mean, I commented to Stevie that it almost seemed like they were doing it too much, and then you find out, as you look at the actors, you're not exactly talking about natives there. So it took me out of the movie a lot too.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I watched that. That was, okay. Sorry?
What's the best thing you've seen recently? What's the best thing you've seen recently? Unless you want to save it.
No, I probably have 2. One that I really, really, really like, and I don't understand it. and it's bothered me that I had to have Stevie watch it, and now I have Chris Jordan in a crisscross exchange to watch it. I absolutely loved watching the director's cut of Dr. Sleep. Yeah.
Okay, I saw you mention this on Twitter, but there was no more context other than you enjoyed it. I know that it's the Shining sequel. I don't know too many people who seem to have liked the book, but I do want to read it just because I love The Shining.
I never finished the book, but that was me. That wasn't the book. I just wasn't in the mood for it at the time. What's interesting? What's interesting about the movie is it's.
Is that the poster for it? I didn't know the little Danny kid is actually like name checked there. That's weird.
So the idea is that the book is a sequel, direct sequel to The Shining, and the movie is a sequel. Is the book with Kubrick's movie shuffled together. So certain plot points are changed.
It's a sequel to a specific version of The Shining. That's interesting.
So what you get is, even though things are quite different in the book in certain ways, he's fitted in so the movie exists. The movie is canon with this. And I have not had that Stephen King-y feeling in a very long time. You know, you're reading Stephen King and you're like, oh, this is cool.
Oh, I know. Page turning and not getting stopped by, the old lady's throwing rocks at his head while he's in the water and they're having a very long conversation. And, so you would need to read. So it sounds like you could just go into Dr. Sleep without reading the book.
Yes.
Now I want to watch it tonight because I didn't know that. Yeah. I thought that you might have a hook into it. If it hooks into the Kubrick movie, I'm all there. I love that movie.
Yeah, it does some interesting. It does some interesting things. I'm going to say this now, and I don't think people will necessarily agree with me, but it feels like a really good superhero movie in a lot of ways.
Really?
Yeah, the world of The Shining that he expands in this is really interesting. It goes into interesting places.
I mean, do people have powers?
That's a very interesting thing. It reminded me of Firestarter a lot, like he was going back to that well. But not to give much away, what I liked about it is, so we're introduced to, we know little Danny.
Character in it?
I'm sorry?
Does it take place right after, or is it?
No. It's an adult. Danny grows up.
So it is Dan. Wow.
Yeah. And, but he knows The Shining because he was told, I call it The Shining. And what's interesting is Stephen King will go to different people that call things a little differently. It's interesting that, in a world where magic and whatever and psychic ability and whatever exists, not everybody, it wouldn't be one easy to explain, this is what everybody calls it, this is how it works. I enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah. I mean, that's what Dick Halloran called it, right? Is that the character's name? The Scatman Crothers characters?
Yeah, and I don't know the actor who plays it in this movie. He has some of the really, steals the movie in a lot of ways when he's.
Oh, they kept that character because he doesn't die in the book, so that must be a weirdo.
I don't want to give too much away.
They find Scatman Crothers with snow packed into his chest, going, "Oh, Ed! Oh, the Scatman."
Yeah.
Oh, no, cool. This sounds. There aren't a lot of movies that I go into going, I'm really curious as to how this is going to play out. Is this going to just be a slop fest that's fun, or is this going to be awful? But that's the whole thing about Stephen King. You want to know what was going to happen. Are they going to make the crazy dog that bit people on page 20, or I Am Susan, the woman who wrote about Carrie in the first book. I'm a sucker for that stuff as long as it's not shoved in your face and becomes more important than the story.
I will say though,
remain and all that.
I will say that I could see if people have problems because certain characters from the Kubrick Shining, there's an actress who plays the Shelley Duvall mother character. She is trying to be as close to Shelley Duvall as you can be.
Yeah.
That I could see some people maybe not
Does she sing from like He's Large from Popeye?
He's Large. That fucking movie.
I like that movie. I like Popeye. It's got a lot of problems because it does a good job of it does a decent job of being like the strip. It's just not exciting, and I don't like the songs, and the ending sucks.
Must see.
No, I really do. But I like a lot of things about it. I thought the casting was really terrific all throughout. Who'd they have? They had Will. They had that mime actor. I can't remember his name.
Oh yeah, he's
Paul Dooley.
Yeah, it's the
Will.
Altman is a great filmmaker. He's made absolutely brilliant films. This seems to be a misstep to me. I just don't think it works.
I didn't think it needed songs. Don't like Harry Nilsson, and the ending felt like a disaster. And it turns out, they ran out of money. The ending was actually supposed to be a monstrous fight.
Yeah,
like Rex shit, and it's like the old EC Seagar Fleischer stuff. They ran out of money, and somebody threw something from tentacles into the water and had them fight it.
Oh, Stevie's doing some research for us.
Yes, thank you, all really girl. Yes, Bill Irwin, who I love, and he has a great character that shows up a couple of times in Northern Exposure. He's a part of a circus. I think he stays mute during it, and he falls in love with one. I've never seen The Long Goodbye. I've always wanted to.
I love it. I absolutely love it. It is made to just fuck up all the expectations you would have to see that character. It's just, I find it a very comfortable, enjoyable film to watch.
I've actually not seen a lot of Altman. I've not seen. I've never seen Nashville. That's something that I should. I mean, I find the complaints that people have about his work, I find I'm okay with, because maybe I wouldn't love to go into a movie theater and sit through some of these loose Raymond Carver-esque things, but I find myself immersed in his worlds, and I just sometimes I like watching actors say interesting dialogue and do good scenes. But Elliot Gould is somebody who turned into a bit of a joke. Yeah. The way Tim Curry sort of did, and I don't just mean because they both bloated up, but they started taking any old role, and when you're a really 70s character actors got to be leads so often, like Elliot Gould, and he's terrific. But once he started losing roles as a lead, like a George Segal or somebody like that, you become a character actor, and they mostly give you schmuck stuff to do on sitcoms.
Yeah.
And Elliot Gould, if people have ever seen Silent Partner, it's not a horror.
That actually came up, in our.
The Silent Partner is terrific. It's a good, smart, creepy crime film that is basically about a guy who, it's the actual, you read about it in the TV guide. It's a schlub who works in a bank finds out that there's somebody's going to hit the bank, and he uses that information. And John Candy plays a cuckold.
Really?
Actually, he's not a cuckold.
I really enjoy the movie, but I don't remember it very well.
John Candy is a friend of it. John Candy gets married, and Elliot Gould walks in on his his wife, who he just married, sleeping with a guy in the bathroom. Yeah, and John Candy's just funny John Candy, and it's sad.
I would like to recommend this movie. This movie I just recently watched. It is Robert Altman.
Yeah. It's Segal and Gould.
Yeah, this is. Yeah, I was blown away by this movie. It is really something. It's, if you're watching movies about gambling and gamblers, it's amazing.
Well, I'm sold. I'm sold. It sounds like one of those movies that I've always wanted to see that I have just somehow never been in the mood for, that are about grifters, gamblers, people on the bottom, the Emperor of the North, Fat City. These films that I don't go into them because I think they're going to depress me because they shoot horses, don't they? They're just this is even if you love the filmmaking, it's going to feel like coming out of something like Chinatown or whatever, where you just don't feel good about humans,
Yeah.
But I do like gambling films, whether they're kind of the Cincinnati Kid and they're just kind of made glossy-ish, or The Hustler, but I mostly like The Hustler because I can't keep my eyes off of George C. Scott in that movie. He's like, he really looks like he's about to pull a dynamite out of his coat and just scream. He's so crazy in that movie.
Yeah.
I like George C. Scott. So what's the other film you were talking about that you saw?
Well, this is weird because here's a movie that I've always confused with something else. And I never watched it. And I watched The Witch Who Came In From the Sea. And
I'm dying to see it.
Very, very, very odd. And I mean, it's not a great movie, but it's I believe it is stolen from.
Oh God.
Frazetta,
it's such a ripoff. It looks like they may have literally put heads on a Frazetta piece.
Yeah.
If anybody knows, does not look like it's not the Sea Witch. I can't remember now, because there is something I think he did called the Sea Witch, but I think it has a different composition. But it kind of looks like they took a head and put a head in the hand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know much about that. It kind of reminds me of Night Tide. It kind of reminds me of a bunch of witch movies from the 70s, but I've never.
But it's none of those things. It's a movie about a very disturbed woman who was abused. It's some of the scenes are very, very tough to watch, but it is definitely worth checking out.
She could meet the man who fell to earth and the sailor who fell from grace from the sea, and they could all have a party.
Well, I think that's what I always confuse the movie with.
Doesn't it sound like that? It really does. That's what it sounds like a artistic, deep message, not messagey, but just kind of like, it doesn't sound like I'm going to see a witch come out of the sea, and witch stuff. I actually saw a witch movie that, what year is that?
That is 76.
Wow, I would have thought it was earlier from the memories I have of look. I saw a movie that was not good, but I found interesting. And now can I find I have too many names here. I can't find it. Oh, it was called Mark of the Witch.
Mark of the Witch.
The problem with certain movies is the names are so generic that you will lose track of them for decades even, because it's really hard to remember witch and another word. Wakewood, Wake Witch, Wake the Witch, but it's not really good. But I was curious about it because it was written by a woman, but and I'm like, I'm interested in horror movies that were made back in the day that were controlled or collaborated on by women, because generally you get two guys and they go last house on the left, let's rip them, let's rip some women apart. It's kind of like an hour-long TV show.
Okay.
Was made by local talent. There's one guy in there who you'll recognize. Everybody else, I think, was it Brian said, do they have a picture?
Yeah.
And I thought it would be interesting because it's college and it's all these kids who are taking a cult class from people, and I'm fascinated when that trope shows up early in a movie, and isn't post Night Stalker or X-Files.
Right.
Like there's that ridiculous movie where the guy from Green Acres takes a bunch of guys and girls to go look for Bigfoot. And I'm just fascinated by the idea that I'm a professor of the occult. Let's have a seance. I kind of love that trope in the first place, whether it's The Gate or it's the movie that was based on the real psychic case where I'm not good at explaining science stuff. Did you see the movie or read about the case where I think it was a British scientist or occult investigator brought a bunch of students together and gave them a fake history about a ghost. And the attempt was something like, would mental energy, belief, psychic connections between these people actually create phenomena based on this ghost story, and in effect create a ghost?
Ooh, okay, that's interesting.
It's not a perfect explanation of the story, but I stumbled into a movie that turned out to be that, made about early Netflix, so it's probably aughts. And I always found that fun. I just love the idea of, we're going to have an experiment, whether they're serious about it or they're not. I love college kids going off on a jaunt and shit goes down. It's one of my favorite. Plus, a lot of them are, is this a true story? Which question: have either from Cordo Gico Rijo seen Bad Ronald, which is a famous, well-known movie if you're a fan, and I've made jokes about it my whole life. Seen it? I've never seen it.
I think I saw it as a kid, but I remember nothing.
Isn't that one of those, we've got a weird kid in the house, threw him in the attic or the basement, and then somebody
lives in the walls. That kid's living in the walls. Why is that kid living in the walls?
It's a creepy movie. You got somebody living in the Pact. Did you ever see The Pact? It's a newish movie.
Oh, I do not think I saw The Pact.
The story's not fantastic, but the mood and the way that they show you the Michigas living in your house, it's pretty fucking creepy. What's really creepy about that is that there really have been people living in people's houses. I mean, in Japan, there's been people up in the closet rafters. I mean, that's fucking crazy. Somebody's been eating your food at night and looking at your magazines.
Yeah,
maybe. Because it's hard to tell unless you're a scientist and you're working on a equation and somebody's erased part of it. They're from another planet with a robot and they erase your board and they fix it, and then you go off to Mum and Shan's. There's a guy living in my house. The Pact is just really creepy, and they apparently made The Pact 2, and I don't know how do you make a sequel to a guy who's living in my house in secret? Like, oh shit, he's in there again.
Maybe there was somebody else in the house too. There's 6 people in the house.
Yeah, his brother was.
Yeah,
Alan Rollins was in there too.
I don't know if Alan's still with us in the chat or not.
No, I don't think so. He has to watch Bad Ronald. So the movie was good. The Witch Came from the Sea.
I think it's definitely worth the watch. Like I said, there's a lot of really intense stuff in it. So you might want to check that out before you go into it. But I really enjoyed it. It's very different.
Right.
Do you have one?
Here's a movie that's very different. We have to have a very serious discussion about this. Aerobicide, also known as Killer Workout.
Oh, that movie's awesome. What a great movie.
It's really bad when you watch a movie and you're sitting there and you're going, Death Spa is a lot better than Aerobicide.
Well, it has the nuances that Killer Robot doesn't have.
Death Spa really gets into the health industry in an almost like The Jungle, like an Upton Sinclair way. Whereas Aerobicide, I don't care. Killer Workout. This movie's terrible, but if you like to watch, if you like 2-minute workout, if you like to watch
20-minute workout.
20-minute workout. Well, 2-minute workout. If I was getting excited, I guess. Sorry.
You're live, Evan. I can't edit anything out of it.
Workout. This workout will kill you is about as clever as this thing gets. It's terrible. Oof.
Yeah.
It's a good movie. I drew some pictures during that one. Oh, wait. Okay, here's one that I can actually talk about that I've always wanted to see, called Thirst, which is Australian, 1979.
I've never finished that movie. I watched the beginning. So there's the exploitation film,
it's
not quite horror. Hollywood.
It's the first vampire film in Australia or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's
part of the
Patrick.
Ozploitation.
People who worked on Patrick, were in Patrick, slept in Patrick's bed, are involved in this movie. It's lowercase f fascinating for where you think it's going, what you think it can do, where it fails, where it's, but it's a hodgepodge. It's not super exploitative, but it puts the cart before the horse in letting you know the high concept almost off the bat. And there's just no reason for that. I mean, thirst, and if you see the posters, there's an angle of blood drinking, it's not shot, but they basically come right out and go, it would be like if you watch Dracula and they tell you, oh, Dracula's a vampire. Somebody knocks on the door. Dracula's a vampire. Pass it on. And even though you know that shit's happening, it negates all the fear and reaction and mystery of the first 20 minutes. So in this one, they not only go, there's vampires, they start with a classic vampire trope, which is in there for no other reason than you can tell that the people who put the money in are going like, shrimp on the Barbie. Are they going to know it's vampires? This is a vampire. They go, this is a vampire, and they pull out an old vampire. This is a vampire. They actually don't trust their concept. And the concept is a modern scientific take on vampirism, which is married to a political class, ruling class, exploitation of the masses, treating them as livestock. You've basically got people who milk human blood, and it's a terrific concept. It doesn't play out well because they don't know what the fuck they're doing. So the movie starts off pre-credits, and you're watching what looks like a 1960s Bad Hammer vampire movie for about 5 minutes, and then you're like, what? It turns out that they've previewed the movie. It's a scene from later in the movie, which is never a good idea.
Yeah.
You're already bumping back and forth. You've got scenes that don't have linking material, but then you end up with this situation where basically someone says, you're related to Madame Bathory. We want to marry families, upper class families. We want to bring you into this cult, this ritual. And they bring her to what's basically the prisoner. And I'm sitting there going, this is pretty interesting. Patrick McGoohan's stuck on a village where everyone's drugged, and you can't get out, and they fuck with you and get you, you know what I mean? But they're vampires of a sort. Pretty good high concept ripoff. But then it goes down the toilet.
That's a shame.
But it's worth a watch because there's nothing else like it. And then at the end of the movie, somebody who writes the checks goes, shouldn't we be beating people to shit and having blood all over them? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? They're basically going, hey, where's the tits? In a porno movie, like one of those slobs, and and it's a weird movie that I wanted to be better. It's a swing and it's a foul tip, but there's some funny shit in it, and there's some interesting. This is how they make movies in Australia, and there's one really good death, but it's unsatisfying. Oh, and David Manners is in it, so he's like that guy from the Monkees. You wish Mickey was singing, but it's Davy, and you've got the vanilla midget walking around in there, and it's David Hemmings, and you. So
do you want to take some questions?
Definitely. Go for it. Roger's asking about horror books and authors.
Right. So favorite horror books and authors. Well, my 3 favorite horror books. Shining is number 1. I love Cabal, which is a novella by Clive Barker. I think that's terrific. And Shadowland by Peter Straub, probably my favorite. Now, authors, one of my favorite horror authors is always difficult to talk about.
Is it Das
Richard
Racing?
Lehman.
Oh, no, Lehman. Is it Lehman?
It's Lehman, yeah. Richard Lehman, yeah.
He's fascinating.
For people who haven't read it, Richard Lehman was an American author who really just got popular in England. And when he started to get some, traction here in the United States, he died young. Yeah. He has some very weird, particular cliches that he kind of goes to all the time. But I will say this. I have never read a writer that feels like you're reading an 80s horror movie.
Yeah.
Because we love 80s horror movies because they make no sense. They're crazy. Who thought of this? Why did they do this? And that's the kind of books he reads.
He also hits on a lot of he checks off some really good things on the bingo card. Some emotional, some shocking. I've never read any of the Splatterpunk guys. I, for some reason, I've just never liked the way they decorated their windows of their store. I've never really wanted to walk in the door on Skip Inspector and a lot of those. I'd like to kind of try a little bit of everything, but I always end up skipping it over the way you skip a movie over and over.
I think I would recommend Light at the End by Skip Inspector. Yeah. It is a vampire story, how can we make this modern? And I really enjoyed it. I think it would make a terrific movie too, more actiony than just horror. There's some interesting visuals that you could do with it. Maybe, I don't know. Like the Splatterpunk guys, I never loved.
What's the quote on Lehman? The quote on Lehman is fantastic. That I don't know who said it though. That Richard Lehman is Stephen King without a conscience. Which is like not exactly true either, because Lehman, I don't read Lehman and think Lehman is trying to wow me with his cruelty or knock me out the way Saw movies do, where they just basically go high concept after high concept that no character on earth would ever come up with unless they were writing a movie. His stuff is to me, I've read like 3 or 4. And the two things I'll say about them is they are page turners.
Yeah, I've read about 30 of his novels, I think.
Didn't your mother hand you one or something crazy?
Well, there's a very weird story. When I was young, my mother was a big fan of horror fiction and movies. She would watch things in the 80s when I was a little too young sometimes to watch, in the early 80s and late 70s. But my mother was reading a book one day to me, and she described it to me, and it was so shocking and uncomfortable that I don't know how many years later I picked up The Cellar by Richard Lehman, and I read it, and I went, oh my fucking God, and I threw the book in the air because I was like, Jesus Christ, this is that book. Why the fuck was my mother telling me about this book? There's actually a tie-in to another question that's coming up, but after you finish yours.
When I finally talked to you and Brian, I was like, all right, I'm going to try a Lehman, because I was like, reading Richard Lehman was for me like going to see Maniac at midnight when I was 16. It was a rite of passage because you can be gross, but Lehman is gross and brutal, but he knows dread, he knows tension. I mean, I couldn't stop his books, even at the same time it was very compelling. And I read the first one I never remember the names of his books though, because they are sort of generic. They're like, My Knife Is in You, The Woods Are Creepy, There's 3 of Us and We're Gonna Fuck You with Our Axes, stuff like that. But The Woods Are Dark is I read, but I kind of was scared. I was scared of The Woods Are Dark because it was the one that people would go, ooh, The Woods Are Dark. So the first one I read was the one with the Sony Bean shit underground, the cavern tour guy thing.
Midnight's Lair. I think that was actually written under another name and then was eventually shown to be him. Because the thing about Midnight's Lair is, if I was to tell you this is a story about creatures living in caves that are cannibals. And you'd go, oh, well, that's fine. But when you read the origin of them, when there's this hotel and what happens there and everything,
there's a scene that happens in the beginning that's not horror. It's basically it's LA Confidential type crazy.
Yes,
Of a
exactly.
kind that why am I blanking on his name? The
Elroy.
Elroy would go, dial it down. Dial that the fuck down, buddy.
Or he would, you know.
I'll say it. It's not a plot. A guy who's pissed off at some people at the hotel walks in with a bucket of gasoline and a lighter.
A bucket of gasoline.
It's not like the container that you use when your car runs out of gas. It's just a sloshing bucket of, and I just went, that's fucking great. I mean, you know what I'm saying? There are just certain things where you go, you got it. Bucket of gas. A guy who's basically going, what did you do to my kid or something like that? And he's sloshing a bucket, and it's like a Staten Island backyard fight starts off this entire horror book.
Yeah,
it's crazy. He's scary.
What about some of your favorite horror books? And
I love The Shining.
Yeah,
I love The Shining. King was my introduction. King, Bradbury. I'm
well aware of his work.
His oeuvre. I wasn't a horror guy for a long time. I was a science fiction reader, and at some point, King is probably what did it. You know, like a lot of people, his books were ubiquitous. And the high school library had Carrie, and I'm like, I know that movie. I didn't see it because I was scared of it. Books seemed like a way to satisfy the itch to see horror movies that scared me, that I avoided, like Carrie, The Exorcist, The Omen, Dawn of the Dead. I had a couple of bad experiences seeing movies like Beyond the Grave. Beyond the Grave, and Legend of Hell House, which scarred me for a year or two when I was 13. So I'm like, a book won't scare you, right? Carrie is super scary. But then I read The Shining, and I had never in my life before spent time alone in my bed as a kid, terrified by a book. I mean, it fucked me up. And I just started going in on King. And then I went in on Clive Barker's Books of Blood because they started coming over in those initial editions when working at the Fantastic Store.
Yeah.
And the comic store that we've been talking about in both iterations sold paperbacks, which was great. That's how I started reading Lovecraft. I read a couple of Doctor Who books while I was trying to figure out what order they went in. What the heck?
The Men's Adventure sign that I posted before was a section in Jim Hanley's universe back in the day, and when they got rid of them, Stevie wound up with it.
Wow! Oh, that's the sign back there. It's behind you. No, yeah, it's behind you. There it is. Right. I was following the finger.
Well, follow the finger.
It was that 3D. Wrong thing. The 3D Three Stooges comic book cover. But yeah, Stephen King was the thing, man. I mean, I went through everything that was. I mean, I remember still being into him when I went to college. I remember going in. I mean, like I can remember reading these books, which I don't with a lot of books. Even I remember having where I was reading Carrie in the library, taking it out, taking it home. Christine, The Stand, which blew me away at the time because it was just so Lord of the Rings heavy, filled with things, and I cared about his characters. He built up good characters and stuff like that. Whatever I think about the movies, because I don't think his dialogue and situations work intact on the screen because he has his own world.
It's like Bradbury's spoken language doesn't work very well coming out of the voice of actor.
Right. Bradbury's poetry style, does not really work in his movies either. You have to kind of adjust it, unless you're going to make something that looks like Night of the Hunter or Caligari, where everything's stylized. But people so revere Stephen King, and he has such a reputation for nailing dialogue and people. But he nails dialogue in Stephen King's in his world. when you say that stuff off the page, so much of it just ends up being meteor shit. You know, he just goes when he writes people when people write enthusiastically about writing in his books, it's beautiful. When it's said on screen, it's terrible. And when they write about music, it comes off as like a real corny white guy writing about music. I do believe that the best King on the screen is somebody stepped in and took some words out and put some words in and just changed Salem's Lot, things like they knew to keep the right things in the Salem's Lot screen, in my opinion. Carrie is a great example of essence of King, but adding things to it that are not in the, you know, they couldn't use the what is it when you're the epistolary, you know, but they put in a way to jump time and place and stay with all the different characters. It's De Palma's best film, in my opinion, to arguably.
I'm very partial to Phantom of the Paradise.
Well, Phantom of the Paradise is a circus. You know what I mean? Phantom of the Paradise is such a it's a feel good crazy movie. Whereas Carrie, it's really, I find Carrie absolutely depressing. You know?
Oh, of course. How could you not? It's
exactly the character. Carrie is also one of those movies where I know that people like one of the remakes with some people like the remake with the actress, but I'm sorry, Sissy Spacek is a one of a kind performer, actress, face, voice, mind, who just the movie hangs on her. It allows Laurie to go out of control and still not spike the movie. It allows a lot to go on. I love that. I love her in that movie. She's fantastic. I don't think she's given enough credit, even though people love that movie. They forget because she's a reactionary character for so long. So I loved Straub. I stopped reading Straub like I stopped reading King. I love Shadowland, but for me, Ghost Story is the book that just drove me nuts.
A friend of mine told me the plot of Ghost Story before I ever read it, so I knew everything that was in it. He was one of those guys that sat down and said, "This is," and then it's the stab, and it's so.
Like your anime fan friends who would just tell you so much about it, you'd be like, "Not watching anime stinks," and then one day you go. Does King's dialogue work for the film Creepshow? I don't like Creepshow. I think Creepshow. Let's put it this way. Does it? Yes, I think his dialogue does work for Creepshow. I don't think Creepshow works, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think we've said I prefer Creepshow 2 much more.
We talked about it in an episode of the regular podcast. For me, Creepshow is a amiable, crowd-pleasing. I mean, it's not a movie to hate, but I really think it's misguided and misses the point of EC Comics and of Portmanteau films. The comic book itself is not a great connecting tissue to the rest of the movie, the same way that a guy reading your fortune on a train, inviting you behind the scenes at a carnival,
you get in an elevator and he gets off.
Yeah,
there's a guy on a chair.
Asylum, which has one of the best.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Lines where the character, the stories actually have something to do with the overall story, or Beyond the Grave, which is a good one, which is basically fuck with this flea market, dude, and you will get yours in your story. The problem for me with Creepshow is at the ending, because I'll go over, they don't end on twists. They just end on black humor. They don't end on an O. Henry mean-spirited twist the way that Johnny Craig and Al Feldstein wrote the EC stories that these are based on. I mean, they got the look right. I like the backlighting. They do all this, obviously very Mario Bava. It kind of reminds me in places of Danger Diabolique, where you get comic book meets Giallo, and you get that lighting Argento and Bava get. I love the flare-ups. When I saw it in theaters, I had a really, really good time. It's one of those movies where I had a really, really good time watching it, even though there was something bothering me about it. And pretty much 5 minutes after I got out of it, I went, those aren't story endings. The guy hates cockroaches. Cockroaches kill him. There's no twist. His body getting filled with cockroaches is a sick joke, but it's not a twist. The Crate, which is a Stephen King story from one of his earlier things. Yeah, it's cute that there's a monster in there, but it's literally a story about a guy who gets away killing his wife, and there's no story. There's no trick. He literally captures a monster and puts it under something and says, he captures a monster, gets his friend to help him. Two actors I like, Holbrook and Fritz Weaver. They do a good job, but what's the twist? He literally says, go under the stairs there. And this monster kills her as if she's supposed to. She's not a nice character. They get all they got out of EC Comics was the classic domestic hatred between the two characters. And the cool scene, one of the earliest scenes where somebody thinks of themselves killing somebody on screen and it turns out it's in their mind. That's a terrific scene.
Right.
I mean, the acting is good throughout, but the meteor shit thing is terrible. That's just them jerking themselves around so Stephen King can be in a story. But again, what's the story? Meteor lands, he gets a disease and kills himself. The trimmings are not interesting enough of him being covered in the cheap plants and having the funny shots and the doctor. And you said you don't like the one with the underwater bit. I think it's closest to an EC story.
Right. Oh, I'm not going to disagree with that, but there's something about it that just doesn't work for me.
It's cheap. I don't think Romero's a great scare director. I think he's a good dread director. I think he's a good social issue director. I think he's good at panic and breakdown and opposing viewpoints in a pandemic or a zombie film. He's good at gore, but he's not good at jump scares. He's not good at booga booga, and that's what EC Comics are. He's not an over the top guy. And the first one is in my opinion the worst one. It's actually badly acted. It's just, I want my birthday cake. Here's your birthday cake. I put your head on it. What? Go read some EC Comics and tell me where the fuck there's no endings. King doesn't. The best Stephen King EC story is a vignette in the bus driver and the kids. That's the creepiest, closest thing he's done to an EC story. Does his dialogue work? Yeah, because it's King's world and it's an over the top. Everybody does this and there's an explosion of color behind them. But I don't like Creepshow. I mean, look at Maximum Overdrive. It is a terrible film, even as a funny bad film.
Yeah, it is a great bad film.
Embarrassing movie. But I like Peter Straub. I like King. I like Clive Barker. I want to get back to him. But I also like old dead dudes that you didn't. M.R. James.
And we should talk about Lovecraft because we both.
I love Lovecraft, as problematic as he is, and I like a lot of the weird fiction writers, and I like those pulp weird fiction writers, Belknap, Long. I don't think they're great, a lot of them. I like Lieber. I like Fritz Lieber. I like Robert
Manly
Bloch.
Wade Willman.
I love Manly Wade Willman. I really do. Even if sometimes I feel some of his stories are a little staid or could use a little more punch. I love his worlds. I think he comes up with a lot of interesting stories, and I like the folklore. That I love his Silver John stories, but I find that they reprinted Worse Things Waiting or whatever, the Carl Edward Wagner collection that he edited of his work when he did several books, and they reprinted it. Worse Things Waiting. And he really comes up with great stories. And unlike a lot of the weird fiction writers, there is some race issues in his books, but in his stories, but they're more of somebody trying and not being modern. He's incredibly, he's not Lovecraft. He continually writes about the crimes he writes about American Native Indians a lot, and he does not redman them at all. He writes about the Civil War a lot. So while there's some things in there that I'd be like, wouldn't fly now, he really humanizes these people. It's not like reading. It's certainly not like reading the horror at Red Hook or some of that stuff. But modern authors that I like, I'm hot and cold on Laird Barron, but I really appreciate everything I read by him, even if I don't love it. I loved his collection. The Beautiful Thing at the end. It's a great title. I liked it a lot. Stories I didn't like in it, I still was like, this is a fun ride. A lot like how I enjoy Robert Aikman, who I've gotten into late through radio adaptations of his story, Rigging the Changes. Some of Robert Aikman's stories I'm wowed by. The ones I'm not, I'm still kind of impressed, if you know what I'm saying. It's like a song that has, you don't like the chorus necessarily, but there's a lot of things going on that you dig. But I really like Nathan Ballingrud, Ballingrud. He's got a movie called Horns, just came out. Is that it? Shit. No, that's the Jim. It's not Horns. Horns was what's his face, Joe Hill. Look up Nathan Ballingrud. He's on Twitter, blah, blah, blah. Really cool guy. He writes, his first book of stories is called North American Lake Monsters, which splashed. I got into it through the Blasphemous Tomes guys on their podcast. His second collection called Wounds, I believe. And I literally had to put it down because I was afraid to read one of the stories. I was getting freaked out, and the library I had to bring it back. So I've got to buy that book. He's got a show coming out called Monsters or North the Lake. So just look up Nathan Ballingrud. I really like his work a lot right now. He's one of the. But I like Caitlin Kiernan. I like Stephen Resnick Tam of New Writers. It's hard to remember names, to be honest. But This is it. Yeah, Wounds. Right, Wounds. Not Horns was the Joe Hill book, which I liked for about 20 minutes and then hated. Oh, Arnie Hammer did. Okay. Cool guy. What are there any? You've been kind of hot and cold on books in general. You've been getting
Unfortunately, reading fiction has become really difficult for me for a long time.
You go through stretches where you're not into it, but I'm trying. But I like. I like Carl Edward Wagner. His first.
God, Carl Edward Wagner. Jesus Christ. Probably the best short story fiction writer that I could think of. I just think, oh my God.
Styx is fantastic, and is obviously Blair Witch owes a lot to Styx. The River of Nights Dreaming, I think, is the name of his ode to the King. I read.
We can look things up too, Stevie. Thanks, Stevie.
You wound me. But Carl Edward Wagner's fascinating because he's just such a interesting guy, because he was a guy who could go Richard Lehman, but he also loved Wellman and M.R. James, and he edited Year's Best Horror for many, many years. And he'd go put in a Sheila Hodgson radio play that she rewrote as a story that basically stars M.R. He was a student and a fan, and you know what I mean? He lived and breathed it. I don't love his later work. He gets into it. I mean, if I am fascinated by writers who get into a kink or a trope, or they have filmmakers. I
don't like his erotic fiction that he starts getting into. Doesn't really, his erotic horror. It doesn't work for me.
His S&M bondage stuff, because every story seems like the same story, and it seems more like he's working something out for himself, which is fine as a person to another person. God bless. Do what you know what I mean? Enjoy if this is where you're going. But the stories became secondary to the kink and to the S&M stuff, and it started to feel more like S&M porn rather than torture porn or horror porn. And I don't like any of that kind of porn, if that makes sense. If somebody's, I get it if you're gonna always have, if Hitchcock's always gonna have an icy blonde, that's one thing. But if the icy blonde is always gonna wear the same clothes and always gonna put a cigarette out in your back and always gonna strap you up and make you wear girls' clothes, it's the same story over and over again. It's cool once, but he also did that story about the things that are in the kudzu.
Oh, that's one of my favorite stories, if not my favorite stories by him. I love that fucking
story. That's a great story. How is that not a movie? How are half these things not movies, right?
Well, he also writes fantasy, quasi-horror-y fantasy with a character called Kane. I despise fantasy, especially written fantasy, and I've read all of those books.
You loaded up all the Kane stuff on my reader, but I broke my reader by slamming the car door on it 3 times, which years ago you would have gone, oh, Evan got angry. So, you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
I feel bad because when I always have to explain how I broke my. It was nighttime. I had my reader with me because I went to the doc. I forget where I went, but I went somewhere where I was going to read, and I brought my reader. And Paul helped load my reader up with Carlo Edward Wagner, Wellman, all this really cool shit. Sarah put a ton of old public domain horror and stuff. I read The Beetle, that crazy old book, The Beetle, which is fucking nuts. And it was dark enough. I had the black coat on, It was winter. My reader was in my pocket, and it fell out of my pocket and just laid over the latch of the hood perfectly, and I didn't see it. So I slammed my hood. I slammed the trunk. What the heck? Oh, great, my trunk's broken because everything on this car was broken. So I'm like, oh, great, the steering is broken. And I slam it again. Oh, shit, I guess I'm going to have to rip. And I slam it again, and then I look down, I put my hands down, and oh, my God, it's my child's head. It was like a horror. I had absolutely smashed this e-reader. Actually, didn't you give me that e-reader?
I gave one.
You gave me that reader.
I might have. Well, no. What kind of e-reader was it?
I think this was Sarah's old one, but
right.
Yeah, I destroyed it. It's like I almost cried because I love this thing. It has a dictionary. What's this word? Because all the old M.R. James shit. I don't know what the hell half these words are.
There's a question that someone asked a while ago, but I thought this might be interesting.
Load of question. I don't know. Okay, Frush30 is asking about recent highlights: Dead and Buried, Exorcist 3, and Terrified.
Well, Dead and Buried.
We talked about Exorcist 3 in an episode.
Yeah.
And I liked it when I saw it many, many years ago. Paul got a hold of the director's cut that was put together using. Here's a question for Frush30. Did you see the director's cut, or did you see the one where Merlin the magician shows up at the end and has a Hellraiser movie break out in the guy's cell? Because the one where the Hellraiser breaks out in the guy's cell is the cut that made it to movie theaters.
Right.
The one with Brad Dourif has a larger role, and the guy who plays Father Frank or whatever from the first movie is actually cut out of most of the movie. Is around, and I watched that a few months ago, and I flipped for it. I like both, but Exorcist 3, which is I guess just called Legion.
I believe so. Yeah.
We talk about it on an episode, so I won't go. I love it. We love the opening where just the priest and George C. Scott as the detective are just hanging out and talking. It's a terrific film.
It really is. Yeah.
There's even a big thing that doesn't make sense. I realized after we did the episode that one of the most famous kills in there with the long take doesn't make sense because the person is killed in a way that is absolutely outside the MO of the killer as established. So it's a stunt scene, if you know what I'm saying, by saying they break MO, they break the rules of the film and don't explain something, and it also would cause a big mess that everybody would notice in the hospital. But it's a great scene, so fuck it, right?
Dead and Buried is pretty. It's like The Fog, but it's much better. Does that make any sense? It feels like The Fog.
I know exactly what you're thinking of. Some movies touch off other movies, and it's because of the opening scene, and it's because of the it's a very similar feel, similar contemporary, made, the ocean, the old people, the community, the grizzled. Dead and Buried is a film that a lot of people, when I was growing up, I saw it in the theaters. It scared the shit out of me. I had somehow, and I do not know how because I did not own the book, I read the paperback of it before I saw the movie, and I found it terrifying.
And that's another mom story. My mom read Dead and Buried because it has a very distinct cover, which I'll try to get up in a second. And my mom read that movie and told me what happened. Read the book and told me what happened in it. So it's a creepy story. And I think elements of the movie really work.
I'm not sure why Dan O'Bannon is beloved, yet people don't seem to do a deep dive into Dan O'Bannon past Alien and Return of the Living Dead. That doesn't mean his other stuff is fantastic. I don't like the Repossessed or the Bazoogie, the detective film that has flashbacks within flashbacks with Chris Sarandon. It's a Lovecraft. It's
it's
The Resurrected.
Yeah, isn't that Charles Dexter Ward? Isn't that the?
Yeah,
that's supposed to be. Yeah.
I remember Sarah and I watching it and going, "This movie just literally stops and starts 3 times." It's as he goes into the different eras, it just goes bonkers. It has one memorable graphic special effect gore scene. I want to revisit it because why not, right? You might catch things you like that don't bother you anymore. I enjoyed Tenebrae. I finally went back to Tenebrae like I promised. And I not only enjoyed Tenebrae, but I had mashed Tenebrae up with some other movie of his in some ways. And but I like Tenebrae. I thought Tenebrae was a lot of fun on the whole, except for the fact that I don't like is it James Franciscus? Not James Franciscus. Anthony
Francioso? No, it's I think Stevie's gonna if Stevie's still on, she's gonna get mad and write who it is.
I don't like the main actor, which turns out to be in some ways a good thing, but it's almost like watching William Shatner's Inspector Lucerne walking through your fucking movie. I hate him from the beginning. He's a jackass character and he's so unlikable. Oh, I did not know that. I did not remember that. Stan Winston for the win, man. Winston's fantastic. Yeah, the effects in Buried are nasty. It's got that amazing nurse. I remember having such a crush on that nurse chick, and then she does what she does, and I was like, okay, I think I'm going to have a problem with prim and proper, starchy, ice-cold blondes for the rest of my life now. Thank you. I don't blame you. I mean, it's kooky.
I love it. I like it.
Here's one thing that I did like about it. It's a spoiler, I guess. A character that I remembered dying in the movie does not die in the movie, and I was very happy. I can, I'm a big baby. I can definitely watch a movie and go, if you're going to fuck up this character I'm attracted to, I think is really cute, I know I'm going to have a problem with it for at least 5-10 minutes. And sometimes, but I'm sick of seeing Dario Nicolodi die horribly in these fucking things. So,
Thanks, Stevie. Thanks,
I hate him. He's the Cameron Mitchell of Tony Francioso's. But the thing that sucks about it is that you watch it, right? And you're going, John Saxon gets into another Giallo, and he's so much more fun than any other male in that movie. I kind of wish that I want more John Saxon. He puts his hat on. He doesn't put his hat on. He enjoys his food. That was great.
Yeah.
The problems with Tenebrae are the typical Argento post Deep Red problems. The coincidences, but even more than that.
Stevie. Oh.
Francesco Scavulo. Okay. There's an extended sequence in Tenebrae where two characters who are in love have a fight that comes out of nowhere. One of them says "fuck you" to the other one. He abandons her in a shithole part of this, and then somehow they walk into every plot of the movie after that. And then when all is said and done, and you have your extended set piece, which is not very good. Actually, there's 2 extended set pieces. It's the only sequence in that movie I don't like. The dogs and the can I come into the death house? Hello? Death house? I mean, come on. First it's like literally this would be the equivalent of escaping Jason and running into Michael Myers. And then you go into the psycho house to hide.
It's possible. Are you saying it couldn't happen?
It's a possibility.
No, I mean, it's Argento's world, but the rest of the movie does not do that. So it really spikes at. Like, I have no problem with people voices hitting them up at shit back, and but that sequence is terrible, and you can pretty much tell what's going on. But the sin for me in that movie is the next day they're all having like food and laughing and drinking and horribly murdered, and they're all enjoying life in the hotel. And And I'm super fucking bothered by what I used to call the Captain Kirk thing. You know, at the end of Captain Kirk is yucking it, and he lost people in that episode. And he's just like, who's blowing me tonight on E deck, and laughing it up with Spock, you know? And I'm like, I like to see the results of a murder have some. I mean, it happens in Deep Red. It happens in some of you know, but there's no reaction. Literally, the boyfriend is laughing it up and excited to be tracking the murderer. It's a very fucked up. But then again, this is a guy who is like had his own daughter, stripped, raped, and killed and stabbed in his movies, and he probably puts the gloves on for that. So anyway, to Debray. I'm off topic. I forgot what.
Well, we got another question.
Dead and Buried is a gruesome film that caught a lot of flack for being gross, the same way that The Thing did, and Return of the Living Dead. I'm not sure. I would like to revisit it.
Me too. I haven't watched it in a long time. It's possible.
Buried is right. The only problem I have with it is that it's and actually there's an actor in the guy in Dead and Buried I don't like. There's those four actors, you know, Anthony Franciosa, Tony. They've all been in Giallo, but I forget who the. Fuck off.
No, I just put that up.
No, I don't. But you know what I'm talking about? It seems the one who was in. He's in Beneath the Planet of the Apes and Cat of Nine.
Cat of Nine Tails. Hold on.
Paco Rabanne.
I'm so old, I can't remember anything.
Oh, I can't. I never remember these guys' names. Tony Musante. I never remember all these Italian actors who were in TV shows in the 70s because I didn't like those shows. You know, it had to have even the one with the bird I didn't like. I didn't even like the one with the bear.
You didn't like Beretta and you didn't like Toma.
No, I did not. Toma's one of the guys we're talking about, I think. Isn't he the one that's in isn't Toma in with the crystal plumage?
Yes, he is the man in Bird with the crystal plumage. Indeed.
Anthony Benedetto. I cannot remember any of these people's names now. I know there's an Anthony Franciosa. James Franciscus. He's the only one I like him. There's a slight Richard Widmark thing. He's good looking. He's affable. He's kind of like if you mixed one of those guys with John Saxon. There's life to him. But the other one, Bubonico Plago, Rey Mysterio Jr., all these other guys, I don't like them in movies. And I don't like the guy who's in Dead and Buried. He's just a stiff. He's another hunk of wood. Yeah. Best and worst Romero films, in your opinion? No, Creepshow is no. Oh no. If you've seen Basher, you would never think Creepshow is worst. I believe Paul hasn't even sat through Basher.
No. I would say his best film is Dawn of the Dead. I think Dawn of the Dead is a great, great movie. It's not a great horror movie. It's a great, great movie. Yeah, it might be cheap and it might look stupid in areas, but think of how much that movie has influenced people and done stuff. The worst movie I think I've seen.
Better than the remake. The remake looks great, but it's a piece of shit. 2 good scenes, you know. Anyway, you were saying first.
Season of the Witch, I believe, a very early film by him, is I found quite tedious. Night Riders can be dull in areas, but I think Season of the Witch, I would say, is worse than Dawn of the Dead. What about you, Evan?
Romero's somebody who I make people don't like my take on Romero because he's, you know, Romero. He's a super important filmmaker who's made some terrific films. I love Night of the Living Dead. It's compact, it's watchable, it does a lot of crazy stuff. It's quick, it's over, it's scary. It scared me as a kid. Dawn of the Dead, one of my favorite films of all time. It's my favorite Romero. I just think it does everything right. And it works with its budget to let you think that the world really is going to hell without actually having the money to show it. By showing what's happening in the city, even though it's all closed in, by using the media in a certain way. He's always done that with his budget. He does it in The Crazies. He does it in Night of the Living Dead. I think the helicopter shot, some of the only effective helicopter shots done in these kinds of movies, because everybody just wants to show you the helicopter. He wants to show you what the helicopter is seeing. You know, it's always the mark of an annoying movie. I forget. Oh, in fact, I was watching Thirst, and I'm going, this is going to be one of those movies where we've got a helicopter.
Yeah.
And there is, oh wait, you got to see Thirst for how Henry Silva dies. Henry Silva dies in the funniest fucking way in Thirst. Thirst is definitely watch. It's like 8 people came in to make scenes. Henry Silva, his death is beautiful. To me, I don't think Romero's a very good filmmaker, by and large. There are people who can make incredibly great, important films, but the balance of their career is really disappointing. I think The Dark Half is an okay movie, but by standards of a master of horror, it's more Mick Garris than it is George Romero. It looks good. He obviously had good camera people, blah, blah, blah. It's inoffensive. I've seen it twice and I can't remember a fucking thing about it. And I read the book too. Night Riders I saw in theaters. I enjoyed the novelty of it. I thought it was a really interesting idea that maybe shouldn't have been made as a film. But it does have Patricia Tallman in it, I believe, if I remember correctly, who's in the Night of the Living Dead remake.
Which is better than the original.
I love Night of the Living. You and I agree on this. I love the Night of the Living Dead remake by Savini and Romero, and I think that to me it's an interesting icebreaker. Like if I was going on Tinder and I was like, what do you think of the Romero? Oh, it stinks. There's not enough action. There's not enough blood. I thought Savini would gore it up like. I actually think it's a tight movie. If it didn't have to live up to the Romero trilogy. Plus, I mean, they did it as a contractual obligation to get some rights back and get some, you know what I mean? But I think it's a terrific,
it's terrific
hour-and-a-half horror movie with some better performances, really good characters, and I love Romero's idea here. It's a great conceit. What if my heroes were wrong in the first movie? What if they went left when they should have gone right? Not many remakes do that. I can't think of too many. I can't think of any from 1990 on. Where they basically, what if Ben bullied them too into the wrong decision and got them all killed? What if they should have just fucking run? The problem I have with Night of the Living Dead, which I count as a Romero film to a degree because he obviously has a heavy hand in that, from writing it, from overseeing it, being around, is the ending. The ending is terrible because that's what, to me, where Romero starts going down the tubes. When he doesn't understand how to pull back the social, economic, political statements, and he puts them right on the nose. When Patricia Tallman goes through the woods and sees people fucking around with the zombies and treating them like shit, there's no reason for her to say, we're them, they're us, and we're them. That's like as if somebody who didn't get Romero's entire output wrote that, not Romero. Yeah. And there's also a thing that Paul and I, we have spoken way back in the past about that movie that I don't like, which is that final scene, which led to things in Land of the Dead that I didn't like, and other zombie movies that people with less talent than Romero did. As fucked up as our society is, as fucked up as the pandemic, as the GOP, as whatever you call it, the breakdown of society to whatever degree, I don't believe that overnight your neighbors are going to take their family members and friends and farmers in a small farming community, put them into a pit and goad them to have UFC death zombie matches while they're laughing and shooting at things. Sorry, I don't believe rednecks are that rednecky. You know what I'm saying? This is a rural area of people who live with each other and need their postmen, their other farmers, the dairy guys, the sheriff, and they're literally having a good old boy firefight with rifles and laughing about it. Now, in the first Night of the Living Dead, he did it more subtly. He just showed yahoos shooting strangers. They weren't making sport out of them. They were just being, it was Vietnam. He was making a heavy-handed statement. Dawn of the Dead, the statements are layered into everything about the stupidity of people and consumerism and media. But in this one, I mean, could you imagine seriously that you would take your friends and family and just start putting them into fenced off areas to fight each other? These are the people you grew up with. Fuck that, Romero. And Romero goes to shit pretty much from that script point for me. Yeah. I hate Day of the Dead. He also goes down the tubes with Day of the Dead, where he reiterates everything from Night of the Living Dead and Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, makes it shittier and makes it a play where military people yell at lefties, and it's just the worst. I mean, it's just not a good movie. It's gotten a much better reputation over the years. Everybody loves Bub the Zombie, who, in my opinion, is a great special effect, and the actor who's doing it is terrific. But once he starts playing with the gun and saluting and everything, and nah.
Yeah.
The Dead is a movie where he ran out of that money, and he didn't know how to do the scenes in Florida with the alligators. Which adds no value.
Right.
But the movie was supposed to be everybody running around outside, and Land of the Dead. And Land of the Dead is terrible.
Yeah.
Land of the Dead is just embarrassing.
The thing is, Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead are very, very, very different. You know what I mean? They are different movies. They add something to the world and what he's trying to say, and they work. And exactly what you said, Evan, I agree. Day of the Dead just doesn't work. And then, but it still almost feels like a Romero film. If you wanted one more good Romero.
It does feel like a Romero film, but it feels like a Romero film you've seen already. It feels like Dawn of the Dead, except instead of a mole, you've got a bunker. And the underlying themes of Day of the Dead, of Dawn of the Dead, are being screamed at you. I also think the acting is terrible in Day of the Dead, all the way through.
Yeah,
It seems like dinner theater tryouts with everybody screaming at each other and gesticulating, and it's boring. There's some beautiful effects work, but upping the gore is not all that Dawn of the Dead has going for it.
Right.
I didn't care for anybody in Dawn of the Dead, in Day of the Dead. I still can't remember those characters. I've seen it like 2 or 3 times. Land of the Dead is Basher is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. It's Romero develops a tin ear for dialogue, and I really believe he's somebody who did not adapt to the times. I believe even directors I'm not a huge fan of. I don't like Wes Craven. I'm not a big Tobe Hooper fan, but I think they adapted to the way people spoke, handled, dressed. It was like Jack Kirby still drawing people in 60s suits in the 80s. Basher is an embarrassing lefty statement film, and I'm a lefty. Nothing rings true in it. It actually ends up having this terrible party scene that is tone deaf. The whole movie is tone deaf and has nothing going for it. But I still think that maybe it's better than Two Evil Eyes, which is one of the worst movies I've ever sat through in my life.
Well, that was Stevie and I went to see that, and there have been a full movies where I've held the front seat and said, when is this going to end? What is going on there? It is so bad. Two Evil Eyes would win for me if it wasn't, half a movie page.
It's a horrible slog of a movie. It's just one of them is a Poe adaptation, and one of them is
one is a Poe, and one is one is Harvey Keitel doing. I think they're both Poe. One is the Black Cat with Harvey Keitel, and the other one is like the Testament of something I don't remember. But yeah, they're just.
And the thing is, the Black Cat, for fuck's sake, right? It's been done a million times on TV, movies, radio, comic books. Fulci did it. It's been done. It's one of the. It's like, God. It's like that scene where Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire finally dance together, and it's just underwhelming. You're expecting so much out of the two of them, and it's worse than bad. I can't even remember half of the other things he made. I've never seen Diary of the Dead.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
He needed to get the fuck away from those movies. I feel bad for him because he's kind of like other people stole my stuff. They took my IP. Him and movies. I mean, The Walking Dead is just somebody going, I love George Romero. What if he never stopped? And they hit the jackpot. Kirkman hit the fucking jackpot. Right.
And the Dawn of the Dead remake is absolutely beloved by people. I mean, I think the beginning is terrific, but
people like new stuff, and that's not saying that's bad. people like. There's a lot of people who will never watch a black and white movie. When I was growing up, people wouldn't watch a silent movie. People wouldn't watch a Japanese movie. There's always going to be attrition, and people want harder, faster, better these days. They like the way films are made now. They like Zack Snyder and that type of filmmaking. Does nothing for me. I think these are empty films that miss the point.
Another question.
I did see The Other. I have not read the book. I really liked it.
I have a weird story. I have not read the book either because one day, I believe Fletcher and Paul and I were going to watch the movie. Yes. There's good Paul and there's bad Paul.
It's bad Paul. Yes, bad Paul. Who's now actually worse Paul.
So the thing is, I don't know what The Other's about. I don't know the twist. I don't know anything. But I have the tape. I've rented it. I go to put it in. And Paul goes, "What are we watching again?" I go, "The Other." And he goes, "Is that the one with the," and tells the ending.
Fuck him. Yes. Yeah. That's a very Paul thing. Yeah. It's worth watching. It's a creepy 70s. It's got that creepy 70s feel, if you know what I mean. It's slow, but I found it. I remember Sarah and I watched it years ago, and I didn't love it, but I definitely something I'm going to revisit. I do want to read the book. The book's supposed to be good. Yeah. Geez. Yeah, and I'm trying to think if I like some Ramsey Campbell. I know Ramsey Campbell always gets laughs out of the group. My friends, him and Brian.
Monsters.
Monster. 33 million
monsters.
But I do like a lot of Ramsey Campbell stuff. I don't like everything. He's written a lot.
Yeah.
But I like his old Lovecraft pastiches. I liked The Doll Who Ate His Mother. I liked The Parasite. But again, these are the books that I grew up. That's the funny thing. I ended up joining a book club just to get horror books and science fiction books. And a lot of these early books that I got, like the Ghost Story, Shadowland, Julia, If You Could See Me Now. I was picking that stuff up. Actually, I was thinking we should do an episode on lesser discussed movie adaptations, because Ghost Story is never discussed because it stinks. But it's an interesting movie. It's an interesting, as we've talked in the past on the show about how sometimes failure is a very interesting thing to dissect. Ghost Story to me is something. It's amazing how they did not get that movie. Yeah. How they went with casting, old Hollywood.
Stunt casting. It was stunt casting.
And the casting was actually not terrible, but the fact is somebody writing the checks really relied too heavily on star power when the old men they're not the main thing in the movie. Right. And they made it seem like you're going to have this, incredible old man creepy movie, which there's a movie to be made about 4 old dudes having to go play investigator. But that's not Ghost Story. Right. Ghost Story passages that have scared the flying shit out of me. I love Ghost Story. But I also watched the adaptation of Peter Straub's Julia. Yeah. Which was
interesting movie.
It is an interesting movie. Yeah. It's a good cast. It has like a lot of 70s movies, has a really cool, understated knockout ending. And maybe like a lot of modern movies, too much of it relies on there being a knockout ending. The difference being that a lot of 70s knockout endings that I'm thinking of are visual, story-based, dreadful. They're not my dead father is a puppet and I've been using him as ventriloquist. They're not the doll is going to get, the doll was, I'm the killer. They aren't switches like that. They are like the end of the Perfume of the Lady in Black, or the end of some giallos. They're kind of more of like a crestfallen. You're just it's a downer and a depressing, and it's the kind of downer that's exciting because the movie is going for that vibe. It's not like watching The Plague Dogs where you want to kill yourself the entire movie. Yeah. Yeah, there are a lot more adaptations than people realize out there of
Right.
and they continue. So
Right.
I mean, Lansdale
Well, like,
has. I'm not a Lansdale fan. I know you like
right.
Lansdale more than more.
I
I couldn't
think,
get into it.
yeah, I think like this question also would really make an interesting podcast, or we could talk for hours just about made-for-TV movies. I think there's a lot of.
I think it's a blind spot for me, and probably for you
Really?
too.
Well,
There's
no,
so many of them that I don't think we even realize. And they were not available for so long.
right.
They're all over YouTube.
Well, the thing is, there's a section of really interesting, very interesting TV movies. I mean, the first Night Stalker is amazing.
Yeah.
It's a terrifying movie.
First one's so good, so good. And the thing is, a movie is good when the stuff that isn't the monsters of the horror. I always tell this when I'm talking writing to comics school classes, something like that. When there's a movie that you find that you're enjoying, if it's an action movie like Indiana Jones, but you're still remembering scenes where him and Marion drink, or you're remembering scenes where she's giving him stitches, or you're remembering, him and his dad in the third movie, when the sutures between the scares, the plot points, the monsters, the fighting the Nazis in all these movies, when you like that stuff, that's the mark of a better film. When you like the opening of The Blob is the remake is a very funny, strong, non-horror sequence to get all your characters together, and they base it on an old urban legend, an old dirty joke. But it brings all your characters together and fools you as to who they are in the movie. It's very clever. And if you think of Return of the Living Dead, there's a ton of funny lines and scenes that don't have a zombie in them. So when you're watching some of these movies and you like the Night Stalker, one of the greatest scenes for me is the end, when everything's done. It's a dagger in the fucking heart. And you don't expect much from TV movies. That's what's interesting about them. You don't expect to be scared. You don't expect to be moved.
Well, I think that's something that's more modern, don't you think? I mean, I feel like TV movies now become a joke. I
think it was
The Night Stalker was the highest rated TV movie of its time.
Yes. Think about all the other TV movies that you thought were going to be really cool and creepy, and you watch them, and it's a fucking guy in a funny suit, or it's nothing at all. It's cultists, or it's not. The only ones we really talk about are the ones that are either crazy, and you remember them because Satan has a school for girls, and that's a great title, or there's those really cool monsters in the basement that drag her away, or Killdozer,
or there's a Trilogy of Terror. Yes, that just came up.
Where's your guy? But those are the ones that get talked about all the time. And Night Stalker and Gargoyles, because nobody's seen a TV movie where they put people in full makeup before. But most of the time, you get Kate Jackson and Tom Selleck standing around going, "I think the neighbor's a witch," and then you get commercials. They're not scary.
But then you do get Duel, and you do get
But look at what we're talking about here. Matheson's in like 3 of these things now. It's a very singular. There were TV movies made on every night, on almost every. There was like 5 new TV movies a week, and the only ones people remember is when they started. Did they say "damn hell"? Was there a teenage hooker? We all remember the same ones. You know what I'm saying? And Salem's Lot was a terrific, on the whole, TV movie. Dark Knight of the Scarecrow, I know people love. I have not seen it yet. I've always wanted to see it.
I have not seen it. I've not seen it all. I've only seen parts of it. It was a terrible copy. It was a while ago, so I never got through it. But yeah, it's always talked about.
But TV movies had to go through TV censors. So you didn't get Star Wars. You got Buck Rogers, and Star Wars is even dead. It's just that it's hectic and has a budget. You didn't get Night Stalker. Dialed it down for the regular series. There's still some scares, but after a while, it's just Monster of the Week. I mean, I mean, the other thing is horror and science fiction just did not fare well. We've talked about this. It was horror and science fiction was always failed pilot, 3 episode series, failed pilot, 7 episode series, Logan's Run, fire everybody from the first 3 series and bring in Roddy McDowell to try to save it. Shit didn't run, you know, man. I mean, that's why geeks like me still remember Donald Moffat, not from The Thing, but because he was on Logan's Run as a robot. So you're like, holy shit, it's the Logan's Run robot guy. They couldn't be very scary. They couldn't show blood. They couldn't be sexy on the whole. So there was a lot. So story and acting and mood somebody actually had to give a shit. And most of the time, that's Richard Matheson with a good script.
Yeah.
Spectre, I saw Spectre. Spectre really wasn't very good.
Well, yeah, Spectre and Bizarre, those.
Is that the one? Is Bizarre what I'm thinking? Please tell people what this is, because I only saw this for the first time because you linked to it, and it is the Bizarre is Bizarre. Tell folks about Bizarre, because I've never Leonard Nimoy, Star Trek. How do I not know about Bizarre?
Well, Bizarre is it's a pilot for a series. So it's a movie about a guy who's a race car driver who gets into an accident. Now he has psychic powers.
Nimoy was a great race car driver. What the fuck is that guy Primus guy saying? Jeez.
It's interesting. He doesn't know how to use his powers. How did I get these strange powers? And he, I don't know. And he, it doesn't work.
Sorry.
You know, it feels like what the hell was what the hell was the name of that anthology show that oh God, I can't remember. Was it called Second Sense or something?
No, I don't know.
Yeah, this is a tangent that I'd have to look up, and we're live and we're entertaining people, but it's
what with your boring friends who talk too much about Leonard Nimoy. And
see, this is like a normal this is how we talk. This is
there'd be more of us. Brian would be there. Carl, we'd have more people, more drinking, or schmokety schmoke or whatever the fuck, and we'd have pierogi and be loud if we were out. So more people. That's why we like your questions, because I like that shit. But there's a couple that I've always, the Quester tapes I've been meaning to check out, because I read all these things as a kid in Famous Monsters. Gargoyles, Don't Be Afraid of the Dark.
The Quester tapes, again, is good. From a kid's point of view, when I watched it as a kid, I loved it. I've rewatched
Spectre. It's a little boring, but I like the characters. Yeah. And I like the idea that Robert Culp was cursed the entire time. And there was something just really cool, especially because I didn't know the occult shit as well as a kid. I didn't know about Charles Ford or anything like that. But the idea of a guy who basically says, I need my friend to come with me because I need a doctor at all times. It'd be like, what if Sherlock Holmes needed Watson mainly to apply cocaine shots into him because his hand shook? It's a fascinating idea that you really need somebody to basically watch out for you because you are destined to die or cursed to die because of the job. But I think because Gene Roddenberry is involved with that, if I remember correctly, it's mostly going to be him going agony, agony, agony at girls, which is the most fucking annoying. I love how everybody goes, I can't believe it. I watched this thing what Gene Roddenberry did, and I couldn't believe how sexist it was. And I'm like, go read about Gene Roddenberry, who was banging Lieutenant Uhura while banging Major Barrett while cheating on his wife with this one. He's a fucking pig.
Is that allegedly, or are we?
No. Roddenberry had progressive values on the screen, but behind the scenes, he was chasing everything in a skirt. He was boss from hell if you were a woman, that type of shit. He would have been up on human resources in a sec. He would have been Me Too'd in a sec. Yeah, but he was always cheating on his significant other with others. I think he was seeing Majel Barrett and Nichelle Nichols at the same time. I mean, they're adults, but the fact is, you shouldn't shit what you eat if you're making a TV show, and it's not the only time he did that. Yeah, he's not. Bird of the Galaxy. That broke my heart when I found out that he was like a bit of a shit.
You ready for this one?
A lot of nasty shit in meetings about what women can't. He was a lot more action, a lot more behind the scenes. He was not. That's progressive. He was a real misogynist and jerk off. But he wasn't a bigot apparently. He liked to shag everything, from what they say. What are your favorite Bigfoot Yeti movies? I like the one with the bad suit.
Wow.
Hey, Mecha Kong. I love Mecha. Hold on a second. Mecha Kong. You start with the Yeti movies. You've probably seen a few of the more recent ones. I haven't seen Sasquatch or anything like that.
The problem is my favorite Bigfoot movies are in the 70s.
Herschel, my son, Herschel, you're in films. I see you there. I love you, Herschel. Oh, fantasist.
Mine is too far away.
Yeah, I know. You have the small. You have a really cool one, right? Don't you have an older? Yeah. The Yukata. Roger would know.
Yeah. But I like those old 70s fake documentary movies. See, I'm one of those people that I wasn't into dinosaurs as a kid. I can't name any dinosaurs. I was into Bigfoot and UFOs and all that stuff. I don't believe in any of that stuff.
You're supposed to be into all of it, though.
No, I never.
You're supposed to be in search of ancient astronauts, cornfields that have fucking mazes in them because it's called maze. I don't know what that means. Robots, at Bigfoots, Loch Ness monsters, even Chessies, and dinosaurs. You're supposed to be in search of all that shit. Come on.
Yes.
Come on. But, how do you not like dinosaurs?
But I don't think they were good. There's, Boggy Creek, which is.
That was terrible. I have, you know what? I've never seen a good Bigfoot Yeti movie. I've never. There's a movie. I don't remember the name of it because it's so generic. It's like we looked for problems and found them. That we looked for a cult. We dared danger and it got dangerous. And it's a terrible movie. It's called like Doom. Oh shit. People out there might know it because it's infamous for a bunch of people are going to check out some creepy town. There's satanic shit. Somebody goes, oh, there's a guy in a Yeti suit running around doing shit, and they go, wow. And this is literally a case of the people writing the checks went, this movie needs more violence and things. You got to kill everybody. So they get the Yeti, the Sasquatch. There is a 5-minute, fairly brutal but inept murder sequence where I've never seen anything like this in any other movie in my life. There's probably something in a Japanese movie like this where the monster or the killer runs into one room and chases everybody in that room around until they kill them all. It's like a domestic dispute. Like the cops have to 911, Bigfoot's beating up the cast of this movie. And he basically just comes in and fucking clears house. It's like a run-in in ECW. Right. It's like has plexes everybody in this thing, sticks their heads in fire, rips them apart. That's the end of the movie. Fucking insane. And the movie has the tone of this ending has nothing to do with the rest of this movie. They dropped the mystery of the weird town. Did we watch this one?
Yeah.
No, I don't know this one.
You didn't see this with us? I would also recommend this as it's a terrible.
I guess it doesn't count because it's a giant ape, but it Oh shit! That is so fucking great.
Oh my god! This with us. It's funny. It's a funny movie.
My first Turkish Star Trek for a second. I got really I was like, what the because Ape doesn't count. That's a giant monkey ripoff movie. APE?
Yes.
And Mighty Peking Man doesn't count because that's
just King Kong shit.
I recommend both. Mighty Peking Man is Hong Kong, and I don't remember what Ape is. But Ape has. If you ever want to see a movie where I believe he's a white colored, he's an albino ape, jumps over some Tonka toys and gives the military the finger. Toho wouldn't do it. Pacific Rim wouldn't do it, but I believe APE does it. There's also a really weird ape movie that has some stop motion in it. We watched it over at your house, and it looks like a fucking. They might. He's not. I got your Skull Island right here, motherfucker. You know, it's sad because look how bad that suit is. Okay, it's got the gremlin sleeves from Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, but it's actually, and it looks like somebody's mother made a sweater and shit. But it's got a better head than the Toho Kong.
Yeah,
which is one.
It's probably a little hot. I would think it's hot in that.
A little Time of the Apes-y, but it's wow, that looked terrible. It looked like they used poodle fur for that fucking thing. So then I think Mighty Peking Man is the one where he jumps over the Tonka toys and we were crying. But do you remember the Kong film that's an American and we watched it?
It's like a comedy. Oh my God. I found that DVD at a place and it was like, we have to watch this.
It's got stop motion animation and it's like, you've seen Danforth, you've seen Dave Allen, you've seen Harryhausen, you've seen Aardman films. Now you're going to see the guy who did 2 seconds from that Peter, I've blown the joke, the Sledgehammer video, except it's an ape fighting a helicopter instead of like all that.
What is the name of that movie? No, that's not it. What the hell is the name of it? But yeah, it's that was amazing.
King Kong movie. It's so fucking bad. I've never seen the King Kong movie that Linda Hamilton's in, where King Kong.
Yeah, so that in the theaters. Yeah.
To the King Kong De Laurentiis film.
Yep. Yeah.
Everybody walks away, and then somebody goes, "Wait he's not dead yet. Get a Jarvik heart," and they put a fucking face. And then I don't know what happens after that, but I think there's a female ape, a lady ape.
Yes, so they could have kids.
Ape sex. That's the Love and Rockets band. He's like, ape sex. I didn't see that one. Nope, didn't see that one. But I don't know any good Yeti. Somebody recommend a good Yeti film to us. Shriek of the Mutilated was a movie that we discussed. I wanted to see that my whole life because there's a picture of it in Psychotronic and Famous Monsters, and it turns out it's a fucking too many Yeti movies turn out to be a Scooby-Doo movie, except instead of like real estate dudes who are evil, they're like a cult of Shivaists who want to eat people. But Shriek of the Mutilated just takes a fucking right turn. Mutilated is also one of the best titles. I mean, you know, Mr. and Mrs. America, do you want to see a movie called Shriek of the Mutilated? Of course.
Yeah.
Do you want to know? No, I'll just see it based on Shriek of the Mutilated. But that is technically a Bigfoot movie. Boggy Creek sucked. Shriek took a right turn. This movie that has like the word demon or something in it has a real Bigfoot in it. I have no interest in seeing Harry and the Hendersons, the TV show or the movie. It just looks boring. Oh, this is a weird way that your brain works. So I'm thinking of Harry and the Hendersons, and I'm thinking of the guy who was inside the Harry and the Hendersons suit. Was he the same guy who played the Predator?
I believe so, yeah.
It doesn't matter because it made me think of
Jean-Claude Van Damme as the original man in the Predator suit.
That's what I heard. It would have been great though if Jean-Claude Van Damme started sweep kicking Arnold Schwarzenegger and beating the shit out of him all of a sudden. You know, I see you, you're mud, asshole. You know what I mean? Hard targeting each other. I would have loved it if the Predator won. Predator's a pussy anyway. Shoots you in the back, uses lasers. He's invincible. He's a hunter the way that guys who bring shotguns to shoot moles are hunters. He's the biggest pussy on the fucking galaxy. He uses crazy technology. He's invisible, and he still has to shoot you in the back. That sucks, right? Fuck him. I never understood the Predator thing. Oh, they have honor. They shoot you in the back while they're invisible. The fuck is that? The only person in Predator who had honor was the American native character who said, I'm going to go face him hand to hand and let's get this done. I'm going to go meet him on that bridge. And what do? They don't even show the fucking scene. He's the bravest guy in the movie. He just gets killed. He was the Predator Harry. I'll watch that movie. Kevin Peter Hall was the Predator Harry. Thank you. Predator Harry and the Hendersons. So
what if he was Harvey too? What if he was the Predator, Harry, and Harvey?
So he's invisible, and he makes you feel better when your back is turned.
And you drink it a lot.
And he lives with you, and you
Yes.
pixelate. I never liked Harvey. That's one of our we don't agree on. I'll have to watch it again when it is. All right, I watched a movie that was terrible.
Okay.
It was fucking horrible. But was it called The Prey? I think it was. It was terrible. But the interesting thing was, it's a movie where they cut out the entire backstory. You have it on your back computer with the, I guess it comes off of Japanese. The Prey was like another 10 minutes longer or something where they cut up. Anyway, it's not a very good movie. We're out in the backwoods, non-actors telling bad jokes and having very bad.
What year is this from?
The Prey, let me put it on my list. It's 1980. And it's a movie that has any movie that has scenes cut or alternate versions automatically becomes a kind of cause celeb because people haven't seen the whole thing. So you like to imagine that there's some really good stuff going on in the movie. You know what I mean?
Right.
There isn't. But it's fascinating to watch one of the fans who puts together these cuts. They're usually some of the most annoying human beings on the planet because this is my creation and I did this and I'm like, they wear a hood and they have to be a horror host and I'm like, just shut the fuck up and show me what you stole from a Japanese Laserdisc kid. And it turns out that the movie is very different. The movie opens with a giant fire in the woods that you're never told the reason for it, but you are obviously there is a burned mutant in the woods who's mad at people because of being burned. So I watched the movie and then I watch the bits that were cut out that are in your version. The movie is on YouTube, and it turns out weirdly enough, they cut out all this exploitation stuff that you'd think that they'd want to have in. It's not violence, it's all sex. Like basically it's just all horny people playing gypsies, so you know where we're going here. Okay. Yeah. It's rednecks killing a forest full of gypsies because a woman lies about her rape. It's pretty distasteful shit right there, you know? But the guy who's your murderer is I can't remember his name. The Karen, the guy from Twin Peaks and the Addams Family remakes.
Okay.
It's like the first thing I've ever seen him in. And you know, when that's the most fascinating thing about a movie, not worth watching. But it turns out that they cut out the entire backstory. The characters they do the Cropsy scene. Okay. These 6 absolutely terrible actors are sitting around, and one of them ends up with a real career. She ends up on all sorts of stuff. But the character sits there and goes, well, you know why there was a fire here, blah, blah, blah. And then they go into a flashback of this terrible tragedy in the town where these horrible people set the woods on fire and shot all these gypsies because one of the gypsies was sleeping with one of the guy's wives. She said that she was raped. It's the usual, you're supposed to feel bad for the gypsies, but at the same time they totally other them and make them into stereotypes, and they're all dancing. It's like Disney Indians in Peter Pan. It's but they cut the whole thing out, and when he comes back from the story, they added him telling the monkey's paw. You have absolutely no idea what the hell's going on in this movie until Jackie Coogan, Uncle Fester, eats a sandwich and says some shit about them killing some people in the woods. It's a weird choice to cut that stuff out because they basically did the 1970s, 1980s, make all the girls take their tops off and show simulated sex scenes. Why would exploitation movie producers take that out of their movie? You know what I mean? It wasn't taken out by censors. They just cut it out. And they used some of the same dialogue, so it's a really weird fit for the movie. It's a terrible movie. Very boring, but I just got off on a tangent on that because of big men in suits, which shows you where my brain is.
I have one.
But I want to keep people don't mind to keep going, we can still go for a little bit while. I mean, if people are still with us, otherwise we can just chop.
Yeah, there's people having a good time while we're doing this.
I need another beer. I want to. Why did I say my name? Irving Dorkin? I mean, that was dumb.
You could change it. You could edit it.
I'm lazy. I'll end up knocking myself out of the fucking feed, so that's okay. So what did you see that you were going to mention?
Well, I'm changing your name first because everybody wants to see me on the computer.
All right.
I saw something that I've tried to watch for years, and I finally sat down and watched it. Don't Go in the Woods Alone.
Flip the table. Well, yeah, I saw you. I forgot all about it that you saw that. I couldn't believe you never saw that before. That thing is one of my favorite movie experiences ever of a bad way. How does it have a 3.8? That's so high.
It's wonderful because I saw a review of it that basically said all it is, there is no plot. People walk.
There is no plot.
Like people show up, walk 3 feet, get killed, somehow show up again and don't get killed. I mean, it's not all that, but it's mostly that.
Ultimate backwoods movie because it's just they can call this people in the woods wall to wall, like the old porno films where it would be no story, we're just going to show people having sex. This is literally bad slasher movie wall to wall because it's literally the kind of movie where it's like do you ever remember the Steve Martin special where he was at the pool Olympics where he was getting rated on how he would jump off the diving board like doing stuff in your own pool, and there were judges there, and it was like an Olympic sport and there was one where he just went not knowing you're falling by accident, and he does this thing where he goes off the diving board, and this is a movie of people just basically going and they get their head chopped off. They're taking a photograph on a mountain and they get hung from something. And there's a guy in a wheelchair who somehow climbs the mountain. That's the guy in the wheelchair is like
that is so terrible. It
is one of the greatest. It's kind of like a testament to American know-how and can-do ability. I'm gonna get up this mountain, and you keep going back. And he's just somehow, it's the magic of cinema. He's in an old wheelchair and he gets to this giant mountain, takes a breath of air, and magic happens.
Yeah.
And the soundtrack, I saw this in the theater with, I think, Rob Beck, Pete Farrell, and Carl Leany. We were like 2/5 of the audience. We were like 30% of the audience. There was almost no one in this theater. It was one of the first movies where I remember me and my friends getting out of hand because nobody gave a shit, and the movie was actually physically killing us. We were laughing so fucking hard that we were crying. You have to watch Don't Go in the Woods Alone with friends, with beer or pot or the fuck you up of your choice, or at least just good friends who like to laugh, because the movie is unreal in its crass stupidity.
Yeah, I mean, look at this poster. Oh my God.
The poster's great because it looks almost like a giallo. If you take away because of the sunglasses and the way. No, this is not in this movie, which is of course great. But I love Don't Go in the Woods Alone. I hate to tell you, I don't want to spoil it because they blow their own concept. Several people go in 2s and 3s, and we literally told people when we left this movie, "Don't go in this movie alone." So fucking hard. This is one of those movies that you come out of and the people online outside are like laughing watching you because you're wiping your eyes dying. Yeah. Oh my fucking God. The killer, like you said, I remember you saying on Twitter, why is this guy not a horror icon? And somebody said, because in that 81 they didn't have that fallen technology to do every bead and boil on this. This guy just looks like. I mean, it's one of the worst. You can almost feel like this is a parody, but it's not. The backstory for this guy's becoming a backwoods murderer is hilarious. The whole movie is just fucking hilarious. From toe to the top of its head. It is a laugh riot. It's a laugh every couple. It's one of the funniest bad movies I've ever seen. Now, you just saw it. Am I right? Does the soundtrack sound like somebody just going There's the guy. Look at this guy. Nerds. Nerds. This guy wrestled. Didn't this guy wrestle for the dungeon in WCW? Wasn't Kevin Sullivan booked his own divorce with this guy?
All the kids get their rosary beads out and make them.
They do kill. I mean, it literally is like people just keep walking into death. Don't go up there. Don't go up there. And then they just move on to new characters. There is a great accidental death. I'm sorry. To this day, I remember these scenes. I don't remember the movies that I just saw. Like 2 days ago on how do you do this? It's like trying to get something off your mouth on your friend. I don't remember movies that I saw in the last couple of months, but I still remember. And the guy comes up behind. I'm sorry, and he just keeps saying it. I'm sorry, and the guy's got the guy's going. I'm sorry. So then basically, that's my one-man show of don't go. I'm gonna be doing that. Joseph Papp is gonna send me around. That movie is so good. I want to watch that again. We gotta watch it. I can't watch it by myself though, man. Don't go. We were doing that for like weeks. I'm not kidding. If somebody banged into somebody or dropped something, I'm sorry. The guy was like there was death and dismemberment, and the guy's apologizing like he knocked somebody's fucking Schlitz over. Strong. That movie's that movie's so good. Oh, I watched a whole bunch of Japanese horror movies on YouTube. They weren't good, unfortunately. They were ones that I was hunting down. I watched 3 movies by the guy who he made Noroi, The Curse Noroi, which I've seen mentioned a lot as being really good found footage. It's not really found footage. It's they call it mockumentary. And then people online argue whether a horror movie should be called a mockumentary because it's not. And then I click off and I go think about the I'm sorry guy because I don't want to see a fight about your nomenclature for whether a ghost movie is a found footage film. Shut the fuck up, misters. Somehow it's always misters. Don't ask me why. But I like The Curse to a large degree. I don't think it's super successful. But it's a movie about a film. A guy is making a documentary about an occult situation that he stumbled on. What I really liked about it, which does not necessarily mean that it's good, was I liked the first half hour was really a lot of fun because what it was footage from this filmmaker / investigator. Him and his cameraman were going around and talking to people. But they were also showing footage taken at live events, like a New Year's Eve live event where they invited people to do a panel about the occult, and some crazy shit happens. But they also used footage from Japanese variety shows, which was fascinating because they nailed it perfectly. And I'm not saying, how did they? It's just that a lot of people, when they try to fake a TV show, like a ghost hunting show, it doesn't matter what country, it doesn't look right. But, I used to watch a lot of Fujisanki TV. Sarah and I used to watch game shows, variety shows, because we had it, the station from Jersey that was least time. So we were watching Downtown and we were watching music shows. So it was really wild to watch this dead-on Japanese variety shows that they faked with real celebrities. So they had actors and comedians. And they do that picture within a picture thing where they'd be watching the proceedings and commenting on them in Japanese, of course. So they'd be going, this kind of exaggerated for the television. Oh, and they're watching it. But they're watching this guy testing children for ESP and phenomena, and they're making them do these drawing tests and reading minds of this person, and it's done perfectly. The whole thing is shot like a television documentary. It's not shot like an exciting TV show. It's got the hosts of the show joking in between, and it's stuff that's happening that they're catching in the corner. They're catching phenomena, or they're catching
And what's the name of
details.
this?
It's called The Curse.
Right, which reminds me of there's a British TV,
Yeah.
Ghost Watch.
It's a lot
Yeah.
like Ghost Watch, except it's not happening live. And
Okay.
what it is, it's very much like that, where Mr. Pipes is in the corners and you have to catch them. Now, there's a few differences in style, where I didn't see where Mr. Pipes was in Ghost Watch all the time. I looked it up afterwards and I went, holy shit, he's in that window the entire time. The guy who made this film, I should have written down his name, the director, because he's made a few of these films, and some people swear by him, and others, like a lot of people, he's hit and miss. He does a thing where he'll show this picture. I'll have Jay Gonzalez's comic here. Let's say this is the screen you're watching, and whereas Mr. Pipes would have been hidden here in Ghost Watch, maybe show it later. Somebody catches it and says, "Wait, let's see this." He will immediately show it like this,
Okay.
It doesn't work as well. In fact, it reminded me a lot of Lake Mungo, which you and I have talked about. You haven't seen it. Lake Mungo is, to me, a more successful version of this, where it's a collection of interviews, not found footage, but previously shot footage by other filmmakers. And I just find that fascinating, because like the way that you say you love when they say based on a true story, when found footage stuff is done really well, I actually like when found footage is an investigation where they are finding the footage,
Right.
putting it together. Not just, well, we found this bottle and there's a roll of tape in it or photos and we're gonna go. I love the beginning of this thing where they were jumping from these disparate things. Interviews with the family of the one girl who was successful. She holds up something that fails the ESP test, but turns out to be very important later on. I love when the details start to fall into place, and it doesn't have that Blair Witch, we're just going to scare you. It's got more of a what the fuck is going on? How do these pieces come together? And you start becoming very tense after a while. I think that in all three of his movies, shit unravels, but I think that The Curse, Noroi, Noroi, is the one that holds together the best. There's one character in there that's controversial because people are split on whether they find the character over the top and it takes them out of the realistic stuff. And I do find that the movie isn't successful all the way. But what it is that it's a lot of use of media, interviews, folklore, the given in a lot of Japanese, the given in a lot of Asian horror movies, non-American. You know how in America everybody has to be convinced of everything. In the UK and Europe, there's always somebody who goes, "Oh yeah, my gram used to, the wee folk did this," or "You better put some milk out for the bruni," films from that are Scandinavian. There's always people who go, "Oh yeah, there's trolls out there." There's always somebody who believes. And in what's interesting about Japan, Korea, Taiwan, where there's almost always like everybody just goes, "Oh yeah, there's ghosts," and they right out of the way, which is kind of neat. But it could definitely put people off if they're not familiar with that style, with the cultural thing. Because I have to admit, when I first started watching J-horror back, Japanese television horror movies like Twilight Zone type that were being shown on this network, I was thrown by the fact that when my house, somebody would just go, "My house is haunted," and nobody would go, "Huh?"
Right.
So I found it almost kind of like, is this cheap writing to get over? Or the characters are constant, but no, you watch enough. Anybody in America now has access to watching Onibaba and Kuroneko and anime and yokai, and there's still heavy folklore and belief. Even if the people don't believe it, they abide by it, they know it, and they can allow for it. So the movie basically folklore that comes out of all of this television watching and shit that you do at the beginning. And there's some really, really cool stuff in it. So there's this trilogy. The second one is called Occult. And this is also interesting in that when we talked about people who, I call it their kinks, it's not a really good way of describing it. But when people have themes that they can't stop going back to, Dario Argento constantly goes back to a lot of things. Hitchcock, Kubrick. You will see visual things showing up in there. Bava. Sometimes it's color, sometimes it's the way they dress characters or they cast the films, and sometimes it's like Richard Lehman when he was getting into his, I want bondage suits and everything, or I want women killed in bathrooms, all the time. And Cult fails for me as a movie, but is a fascinating experience because it is conspiracy stuff about UFOs, ghosts, mental health. The narrator, the subject of this film is not necessarily trustworthy. There's a lot of interesting things in it. It's a cheaper budget, and there's an aesthetic with the special effects that it seems he goes for a thing with special effects in this in these two last movies I'm going to discuss, where he wants them to look kind of fake. And it didn't work for me. I get where, but it's almost as if you were watching Suspiria, and then Houseu breaks in for 10 minutes at a time, and you're like, they're in the ballpark, but this isn't what the movie was for an hour. And then all of a sudden, you're seeing these effects that look like a robot chicken animator may have gotten in the background, or they ran out of it. It took me out of the film. I think it's also way too long. I think all his films are too long. But I ended up watching all three of these in a row. Occult is about a guy. Occult is another film where somebody was taking their incident, a violent incident. Several of the people involved in this incident start to have similar things happen to them in their lives, or there are symbols that connect them to this particular incident. These documentary filmmakers decide to, like 10 years later, track down victims, track down surviving family members, and talk about this famous incident. Fascinating to me, It then ditches the mysteries it builds to concentrate on one character, and does not work for me after that to a degree. But I wrote it out because I was really fascinated. This is the movie I told you, out of the blue, they go, well, we're going to speak to movie director Kiyoshi Kurosawa about his research into the occult. I'm going, that's worth 10 points to watch the guy who made Olsen. You start talking to him about this. They both are into this shit, and it's just very, very weird. I didn't find it was scary or ended on a really interesting beat. The ending will possibly make you laugh out loud or go really cool. It's a weird movie. And the third one, he goes back to the same fucking thing. People on film investigating an occult situation. This one is called Cult. So it also becomes weird because you've got curse, occult, cult, and you're like, are there connections? Not really. Cult, weird, and in some ways the most entertaining of them, because as you're watching it, you're like, he's cheating. This isn't really feeling like a documentary so much as a fictional film. A character shows up that a lot of people describe as throwing them out of the movie because he acts like an anime character. He actually acts like a character rather than as a person. But I found him funny. The movie itself also has the weird, dopey effects work that look like they were done on a cheap computer and tossed into this movie. They have a weird mix of this is creepy, makes no sense, and this is stupid, makes no sense. I mean, the whole conceit of the movie is that three young actresses, are asked to go with a crew to investigate occult experiences that this mother and daughter are having in their house. supposedly this stuff's dangerous, and you kind of don't understand why they need 3 actresses to be in this fucking documentary TV show. And supposedly there's people behind the scenes who are making this who don't watch the movie that they're making. They don't watch the footage at night because there's important information happening on the footage that they show you. Like, okay, we're gonna have a 24-hour camera, and you're like, do you see what's happening in this hospital? This violent thing has happened, and no one mentions it. This is literally like watching a found footage film where it's after the fact and nobody watched all the found footage, especially some of the most important stuff. The work is just deteriorating for me. But yeah, look up the guy who's in 2003 or 5 is The Curse. Cult is 2013. Occult is 2009. Okarutu. So it really feels like this is a guy working at. So he loves found footage. He's made found footage thrillers, and he made an erotic found footage film, which I'm going to avoid like moldy bread. I just have no interest in that. I mean, wouldn't you think an erotic found footage film is just pornography? I don't know. But they're interesting. I think the first one's really fascinating. I think Occult is an interesting miss, and Cult is. I laughed at Cult at the right places because I like this guy who is like what if L from Death Note was an asshole? You know, he's telling everybody to shut up, and he's got a terrible attitude. I wouldn't mind seeing this character again in something because I thought he was funny. The movie itself is a bonkers mess. Then I watched a lot of Italian movies. And caught up on stuff. Watched tried Inferno again. Still didn't like Inferno, but thought it looked a lot better than I remembered. Beautiful looking film, but it's Suspiria without interest.
Yeah,
it felt like another director's answer to Suspiria. You know, like it felt like there's a really shitty Black Cat movie out there that was supposed to be the third mother.
Oh right, I've seen that. Yeah.
It's one of the worst movies ever made. I couldn't believe it. I think it's called The Black Cat also or something like that.
Yeah, but I mean, just because the makeup looks like somebody puts cottage cheese on their faces.
It's not. It's really fantastic. It looks like it looked like somebody blowtorched a lot of Christmas tree peeps and put them all over the witch's head, and then blowtorched it some more while the witch was wearing. That movie was fucking That was one of the first Italian horror movies I ever saw, and that really did not help.
Really? When did you see that first?
I saw it on cable many, many years ago. And that was kind of like meeting, somebody comes into your house and throws up on your baby. And you're like, I don't know if I'm having you over again. It was terrible. And for years, I thought it was The Black Cat with the Fulci Black Cat with Patrick. I'm blanking. Crazy Patrick from Clockwork Orange, English actor.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah. Why can't I remember names now? Yes, I know who you're talking about.
Our favorite girl. One of our favorite girls. Mimsy
Farmer.
Mimsy Farmer, who I've had a crush on since seeing a picture of her in a book many years ago. She's actually good in The Black Cat. I liked her. I like that movie. So it's Causey. Yeah, that's the thing. I always thought that was the Fulci Black Cat. They're made really fairly close to the same time, and they're incredibly different movies. I watched the Luigi Causey movie the other day. What was it called? The Phantom of Death, I think. Woof. Oh, there it is. You know what? It's more. They put a green light on her in the movie. Show me that again. Can we see that again, folks?
Yeah, I'm bringing it back up.
Because bring that beat back. Now, doesn't that look like somebody melted Jack Nicholson? But they also, maybe it was a Jack Nicholson that was made into one of those muscle figures.
Yeah, it doesn't really look like those hands work for picking up things very well.
No. But you can definitely put your order tickets on those claws if you're working at Blood Dunder. Based on El Relato de Edgar Allan Poe. Yeah. And you look at that and you go, what the fuck is from Edgar? That's it. Look at that.
Yeah.
That actually almost looks good. That's actually kind of, that's like put the mask on now. We're going to play D&D. Yeah. But in the movie, they have green lights vomit out of a mirror and some other shit. But,
yeah, it's really bad.
Look up Phantom of Death. We're going to do this for 24 fucking hours for charity. We're going all in. I can see my beard grow. I can see. Do we have anyone left?
Yeah, we have 12 people watching.
What the fuck are they doing? They must be dropping acid and in the corner of the room or something right now. God bless you, folks. I thought we'd have like 3 people. Nice.
Oh, Phantom of Death is the Michael York one. Oh, that's so bad. It's so bad. It's so bad.
It sucks. And it's kind of fascinating how it sucks, because I thought it was to me. It's Deodato. It's not Kazi. It's first of all, you got. I'll watch Donald Pleasance in anything, and he'll be in anything. Look at that. And I don't know how to pronounce her name. And I know she's a big deal in Giallo and Italian films. People love her. I think she's a wonderful looking person. In this movie, she's terrible.
Okay.
And this is another one of those movies where everybody speaks a different language. So half of them are dubbed. It's Italian.
Right.
So Donald Pleasance talks like Donald Pleasance, but he really looks like he's forgetting where he is. He looks incredibly bored. He yells a few times, which woke me up. It was really, I didn't like seeing him yell. I felt bad for him being in this movie. But his lieutenant has a different voice. There's a coroner who has a voice that seems to be coming from a bathroom, recorded in a bathroom, like another one rides the bus.
Yeah.
And she's not dubbed. Her English is, I can't understand what she's saying half the time. And she always seems to be laughing at Michael York, whether it's serious or not. So this is Michael York develops progeria. It's very rare. They actually say it's very rare for Michael York to develop progeria in his 40s. But I was fascinated by this for 2 reasons. One, I didn't know that Michael York was in a semi-giallo horror movie. It makes sense.
Yeah.
He makes sense, one of these guys, almost perfect actor, kind of good looking. But he really gets into this terrible role of a guy who ages 50 years in a year, and they keep putting more Chaka makeup on him. And the thing is, he's fucking all these women. He's working with all these people. He's a famous guy who records music. He's a musician who does live, and nobody recognizes his voice or recognizes him, even though he's got an incredibly Michael York has very discernible features. Even if you throw a bucket of shit on him, you go, there's Michael York. Recognizable voices in films ever. Do you know what I mean? Michael York's voice comes, and even if he goes, rah, 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 it's Michael York going, rah, rah, rah. The idea that his daughter, that his lovers, that his friends and coworkers don't know this is Michael York, it'd be like not knowing Sam Kinison is yelling at you in a parking lot just because he's got some makeup on. It's a terrible movie. He starts killing people because he really hates getting old.
Yeah,
that's shitty
makes sense.
And he keeps wanting to get caught, but he's playing cat and mouse games. It's kind of more like turd and broken glass. That's a terrible analogy, but cat and mice are cute. And he calls up Donald Pleasance and calls him daddy all the time. And no, he doesn't have a kid. Donald Pleasance has a kid, but it has some of the worst kills, some of the worst scenes, and for some reason he keeps turning into this horrible old man who's falling apart, but he can still kill people who are I'm confusing this with another movie now, because these Italian movies. I'm confusing this with another movie called Midnight Killer.
Okay.
Midnight Killer. Midnight Killer is an Italian horror movie. It's a Gio. It's so bad. I figured out the murderer and I figured out why the murderer was murdering, like in the middle of the movie. And you know I suck at these things. Like I'm terrible at murder movies. And yeah, Midnight Killer is terrible. It rips off. Oh, You'll Die at Midnight. Yeah, sorry. It has a lot of different titles.
Yeah.
Oh, this one's Lamberto Bava, right? Lamberto Bava. It's got some, cute people in it, and if this is how you have to sell a movie, obviously the movie doesn't have much. And it's just a bad movie. It's somebody is accused of. It's got a lot of Argento and Bava in it. People see things that are not necessarily true. There's perception is off.
Okay.
And it turns out that characters have more to do with other characters than you're led to believe, but it's done in a very sloppy. It's kind of got some crystal plumage stuff of like afterwards going, oh no, he wasn't trying to stop so and so, he was trying to save so and so. It's terrible, and it's unbelievable, and it's absolutely boring. Yeah. And it's one of those things where you just feel like if anybody just stopped for a minute and picked up a bottle or a wastebasket, and they could just kick the shit out of this person. You know what I'm saying? It's like, stop doing this. And all decisions made are terrible. And a couple of the actresses in this end up in a lot of other things. It's early. They end up getting killed in other stuff, but nah. I have it written down. You'll Die of Midnight Killer. Yeah, there you go.
Well, we're about approaching the 3-hour mark.
The 80-hour mark. We could have watched 14 Bowery Boys films by now.
So
Koyaanisqatsi.
So here's the question. It would be nice if you gave us some feedback. If people like this is a fairly easy thing for us to.
Oh, I thought you were.
Well, I'm not asking you. No, I'm not talking to you. But hopefully people had fun just watching us bullshit here and had a good time. And if you'd like, I have this I could do.
We got. Oh, yay! That was scary. I thought it was you for a second.
Yeah, I know. That's how good I am.
Good. One thing to explain is that literally we just did this last minute. We talked yesterday, 2 days ago, and we were like, let's just do it to do it. If we could cut it into episodes. Yay! Thank you. We could cut into episodes for people to catch on. It's something that you guys can do while you're like folding lawn. You know what I mean? It's like a podcast. It is like a podcast. You do not have to necessarily watch us. We're doing this to hang out with each other. We have not seen each other much, and maybe we hope to have Brian back again. But we figured while we can't really do the planned shows, where we're really like researching and bearing down, we're just doing bullshit sessions. This went longer than we expected, but you guys know how.
I didn't think it was going to go long. I thought it would go about this long.
Oh, okay. You sound like my therapist. We know, Evan. Yes, Evan.
So
yeah.
Thank you, everybody who showed up for this. And
if you guys want, please hit us up on write us via the website or Twitter. I love hearing questions, whether it's it's like we're doing panels when we're doing this too. We want questions from you guys. We've talked about it. Think about stuff. This is what I do. You see a movie, does it make you think? If you have an idea for it, do you want us to do all 5 Phantasm films? I am thinking about revisiting them for the hell of it. Those last 2 are going to be tough. But I love Phantasm, and we've talked about it a lot, but sometimes it's nice to go through a whole series, and that's a short one. So, yeah, we are planning on watching as much Friday the 13th or remembering as much. I realized one thing. The tagline.
I might just fake it and just say, oh, yeah, which one was that?
Well, I think it might be funny to not look up much and then have you, because you're better at go, I don't know which one Crispin Glover dances in. Is that 4? It's the funny thing with the Halloween. With Halloween, I'm like, there's Halloween. Halloween, the night he came back again. Then there's the one, No Michael. It's good. You should watch it. Then the kid in the clown suit. And then you get weird, creepy guys showing up on buses, kid in the clown suit. Michael Myers drives up. Then you get the worst, crazy Donald Pleasance. But you remember, I mean, Hellraiser 1, 2, 3, as bad as they are, I remember Friday the 13th is, okay, she killed them. Oh, the town that dreaded sundown killed them. Oh, we got the mask.
Oh, was it Jason in this one? It wasn't
He wasn't Jason. Crispin Glover dances. Corey Haim pisses. Pisses, whatever. This is the one where he fights Carrie. With the,
but the thing is, we watched remember years ago when we decided to go through all the Friday the 13th, we watched them in order to try to see if they made any sense?
No. We watched a few together, we watched a few apart, and we watched a few calling each other up at the end going, what the fuck was that? Wait, a psychic? You know, I like that they open up the world because they don't know what to do next, and they have a fire starter. Boom. There's a fire starter, but then there's no more psychic ability in the thing. Then you eat hearts. So anyway, I think it's going to be fun because it makes no fucking sense. We can't remember what was what. But here's the thing I found fascinating about Friday the 13th, thinking about it. I even wrote it down. That's how I said it. It is the simplest franchise. It is probably the most successful, wouldn't you say? I think it's got the most films, including remakes. It's made the most money. Halloween might have beaten it by now.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But anyway, what I mean is, I think it's like the prototypical slasher horror movie that everybody thinks about. Jason might be the #1 toy mask. Blade, you know, they've got versions of there's so many NECA toys and other toys of him. People love Jason.
Yeah.
The music theme, and it's got the simplest catch. Sexy people go up to camp, they party, they die. There's the backstory is ridiculously, and the interesting thing about it is that it might be the only franchise that doesn't know what it wants to do. I know that's not a big deal, but I was fascinated by it. Hellraiser is about Hellraiser. Phantasm is Phantasm. Michael Myers is your exorcist. This is a movie that literally is a murder movie that then decides there's a supernatural backstory. And then this doesn't get its groove until the third one and get its actual killer in his costume. It's almost like a wrestler whose gimmick is being worked out over the course of films. Everyone else is complete.
Have you seen the I don't know, I think it might be 6 hour long, what is it, Crystal Lake Memories? It's basically all these kind of documentaries put in one place for every film in the franchise. And one of the interesting things you find out in this documentary.
It's an actual documentary, not a fake documentary with.
No, it's a real. I believe what it is it's special documentaries made for films and special editions that put all together is essentially. And I watched it all, and
that sounds cool.
The thing that's really interesting about it is when you hear the producers talk. I forget which exact producer they had on.
Him in the first ones.
Yeah, it wasn't him, no. But the idea was
he's too important.
We think when we watch these movies and we think what's happening is okay. Well, the last movie is about this. How do we add to it? But a lot of times somebody would just be like, "Hey, I got hired to direct. Here's a crazy idea," or "Hire me to direct this. How about I do this?" And so
I have seen that in interviews in magazines that. Some of them were Halloween got a little bit like that later on too, where it was they find a director and the director comes in but says, I've got an idea, and then nothing. It's like the wrong parts. It's just Friday the 13th is fascinating because it is almost like they throw everything away each time except Jason.
Yeah. So this is our preview of the upcoming, hopefully October.
It's gonna be mostly us going like this. Fuck! He's a baby. He doesn't even take Manhattan. He doesn't even take one block of Times Square, does he? Fuckers.
I think he's a little in Times Square. I mean, they didn't have the money to make the movie they wanted to for Jason Takes
They
Manhattan.
basically just make him go like this, you know. And one guy's like, dude. And the joke, I love how they invented the joke. If a weird thing is in New York, nobody will notice it. That's me. Pizza. All right. This was fun.
Thanks everybody. You can find us at tearapart.com. I think. Jesus Christ, I'm not prepared. And
I'm the new number 2. Woo.
You know, and there's we'll be back before you know it.
Yeah, we'll probably we could do one of these in 2 weeks maybe, or something like that, or even before. If I get, hey, everybody who's paying attention, I got a car today.
Yay.
But the battery died.
Oh,
boo, boo. And then I hurt my shoulder changing the plates. But you know what? I knew the battery was in trouble, but we thought it was going to be able to take the charge, and because the car sat for a long time. You know what? Fuck it. It's a minivan. We can actually fucking put things in there. Now that there's no conventions, we finally got ourselves an old minivan.
Yeah.
Holy shit. But still. So, talk to you guys. And also, we're both on Twitter. We're both on Instagram. And we both usually talk to each other. And usually it's the two of us, Stevie, Roger, sometimes Tony, who's now in Atlanta, one of our old friends, and Brian. And we usually just going, oh my God, I just thought about the movie Crash again. Not the one you think of. All right, yeah. Great.
All right. Good night, people.
And thanks about the book. I'd like to talk about books again sometime. Good night, everybody. Take care, Paul.
Good night. Good night, Evan. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Good luck with the oil. That's the oil heater. That sucks. Yeah. When they come in?
It's either Friday or Thursday, I think. So yeah.
Okie dokie. I'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody. I'll probably talk to you on Instagram in 10 seconds.
All right.
Because you'll. Right. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Paul. Thanks.